Hi everyone. Great to have you here at Potter Paradox. Get comfortable because today we're presenting what if Harry refused his Hogwarts letter and built his own wizarding school. Before we start, a gentle reminder, if you love stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm show our videos to more people. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Chapter 1, The Refusal. Harry Potter shoved the worn sneaker against the cupboard door, wedging it into the gap to stop Uncle Vernon from locking him in again. 11 years of living with the Dursleys had taught him to prepare for the worst. He'd spent the morning weeding Aunt Petunia's garden under the blistering July sun while Dudley lounged inside with ice cream and television. His cousin's laughter drifted through the open window, a constant reminder of the unfairness that defined Harry's existence. "Boy! Get the mail," Uncle Vernon barked from behind his newspaper. Harry trudged to the front door, wincing as his sunburned neck scraped against his oversized collar. The usual bills and postcards lay on the doormat, but one envelope stood out, thick yellowish parchment addressed in emerald green ink, Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. Harry's heart skipped. No one had ever written to him. He flipped the envelope over and spotted a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding the letter H. The detailed knowledge of where he slept sent a chill down his spine. Someone was watching him. "Hurry up, boy!" Uncle Vernon shouted. Harry slipped the strange letter into his oversized pants pocket. Years of having his possessions confiscated had taught him caution. Later that night, crouched in his cupboard with a dying flashlight, Harry broke the wax seal. The letter declared he'd been accepted to a place called Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He reread it 3 times, emotions warring between hope and suspicion. "Magic," he whispered to himself, running a finger along the signature of someone called Albus Dumbledore. Either this is the weirdest prank ever, or... Harry's mind raced through every strange incident in his life, suddenly appearing on the school roof, his hair growing back overnight after Aunt Petunia's horrendous haircut, the vanishing glass at the zoo. Things that had earned him punishment, isolation, and endless lectures about his freakishness. The Dursleys knew something. They'd always known. Harry folded the letter carefully and wedged it between the loose floorboard and wall. If magic was real, and someone wanted him at this school, he needed more information before deciding anything. The Dursleys had lied about everything else, his parents' death, his scar, why strange people sometimes greeted him in the street. No, Harry wouldn't rush into this. Trust wasn't something he gave easily. The next morning brought more letters, 3 identical envelopes addressed to Harry. Uncle Vernon snatched them away, his face purpling dangerously. "Dad, look! Harry's got letters!" Dudley announced gleefully. Vernon ripped them to shreds, mustache quivering. "Go to your cupboard," he snapped at Harry. "Petunia, they know where he sleeps. They could be watching." "Vernon, what should we ignore it? They'll give up eventually." But they didn't give up. More letters arrived daily, forcing their way through cracks in the house. Uncle Vernon nailed the mail slot shut. Harry was moved to Dudley's second bedroom, but the letters followed, now addressed to Mr. H. Potter, the smallest bedroom. On Sunday morning, Uncle Vernon sat at the breakfast table looking tired but triumphant. "No post on Sundays," he reminded them happily. "No bloody letters," a letter shot from the chimney, smacking him in the face. The fireplace erupted, dozens, hundreds, of letters shooting into the room like bullets. Harry jumped, trying to grab one, but Uncle Vernon seized him around the waist. "We're leaving. Pack some clothes. No arguments." They drove for hours, switching directions randomly as Uncle Vernon muttered about shaking them off. They finally stopped at a gloomy hotel on the outskirts of a city, but letters arrived there too, addressed to Mr. H. Potter, room 17. Uncle Vernon's breakdown culminated in their relocation to a miserable shack on a rock in the sea as a storm raged around them. Harry lay on the dirt floor beneath a ragged blanket, watching the minutes tick toward his 11th birthday on Dudley's watch. Make a wish, Harry, he whispered to himself as midnight approached. Boom. The whole shack shivered. Someone was outside, knocking. Boom. They knocked again, harder. Dudley jerked awake. Where's the cannon? Uncle Vernon skidded into the room clutching a rifle. Who's there? He shouted. I warn you, I'm armed. Smash. The door swung clean off its hinges and crashed to the floor. A giant of a man stood in the doorway, his face almost completely hidden by a wild, tangled beard, but his eyes, visible like black beetles under all the hair, crinkled in a smile. Couldn't make a cup o' tea, could ya? Not been an easy journey. He strode over to the sofa where Dudley sat frozen with fear. Budge up, yeah, great lump. Dudley squeaked and ran to hide behind his mother. And here's Harry, the giant said. Last time I saw you, you was only a baby. Yeah, look a lot like your dad, but ye've got your mom's eyes. Uncle Vernon made a rasping noise. I demand that you leave at once, sir. You are breaking and entering. Ah, shut up, Dudley, yeah, great prune. The giant reached over the back of the sofa, jerked the gun from Uncle Vernon's hands, tied it into a knot, and tossed it into a corner. Anyway, Harry, said the giant, a very happy birthday to ya. Got some at fair ya here, might have sat on it at some point, but it'll taste all right. From an inside pocket of his black overcoat, he pulled a slightly squashed box. Harry opened it with trembling fingers to find a large, sticky chocolate cake with, Happy Birthday Harry, written on it in green icing. Who are you? Harry asked, keeping his distance. True, I haven't introduced myself. Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. He held out an enormous hand and shook Harry's whole arm. What about that tea then, eh? Hagrid lit a fire with his pink umbrella and produced sausages, tea, and more from his seemingly bottomless pockets. While Harry ate his first birthday cake ever, Hagrid explained about Hogwarts, magic, and Harry's famous history as the boy who lived, how his parents had been murdered by a dark wizard named Voldemort, how Harry had somehow survived with nothing but a lightning-shaped scar, how he'd been famous his whole life without knowing it. Load of old tosh, said Uncle Vernon, finding his courage. He's not going to that school. We swore when we took him in we'd stamp out that dangerous nonsense. Harry's head snapped up. You knew. You knew I was a wizard. Knew, shrieked Aunt Petunia suddenly. Of course we knew. How could you not be, my dreadful sister being what she was? She got a letter just like that and disappeared off to that school, and came home every vacation waving her wand and turning teacups into rats. I was the only one who saw her for what she was, a freak. Her voice rose with years of suppressed bitterness. Then she met that Potter at school and they left and got themselves blown up and we got landed with you. Blown up? You told me they died in a car crash. Harry's voice vibrated with barely controlled rage. Car crash, roared Hagrid. How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? Harry stood still, mind racing. His whole life had been built on lies. His parents hadn't been unemployed drunks, they'd been magical, murdered heroes. He wasn't a freak, he was a wizard. And this giant stranger wanted to whisk him away to a magical castle school he'd never heard of. So, Harry said finally, his voice steady. You want me to just pack up and follow you to this Hogwarts place? Trust that everything you're saying is true. Well, course you'll come. Hagrid looked genuinely puzzled that Harry might hesitate. Why should I? Harry's eyes narrowed. My whole life people have lied to me. The Dursleys. And now you show up saying I'm famous, my parents were murdered by some wizard who's maybe dead but maybe not, and I should just trust you blindly. Hagrid's beetle-black eyes widened. But ye have come. Your name's been down since ye were born. That doesn't answer my question. Harry crossed his arms. How do I know Hogwarts is safe? How do I know this isn't trading one prison for another? The Dursleys at least I understand. Harry Potter, Hagrid's voice dropped low, yeah, belong in our world. Yeah, can't stay here with these muggles. Maybe I don't belong anywhere. Harry stepped back. But I'm not jumping from one unknown to another. Not without more information. Vernon Dursley's face shifted from purple to a triumphant red. The boy's made his choice. Now get out. Hagrid ignored him. Harry, I don't think you understand. Dumbledore, the headmaster, he's countin' on ya coming. Everyone is. That's exactly my point. Harry's voice hardened. Everyone's counting on me, planning my life, without ever asking what I want. I'm not going to Hogwarts. Not now, anyway. Hagrid stayed 3 more hours, alternating between bribes, magical sweets, tales of the castle, and thinly veiled warnings about Harry's importance to the wizarding world. When he finally left, Harry had a birthday cake, several magical books Hagrid insisted he take, just to understand things better, and a persistent feeling he'd made both the smartest and most dangerous decision of his life. The Dursleys' treatment worsened after Hagrid's visit. They seemed to think Harry's refusal to attend Hogwarts meant their stamping out of his magic had succeeded, giving them license to push harder. Harry was locked in his room except for chores and bathroom breaks, with meals shoved through a cat flap Uncle Vernon installed. Harry spent August reading his magical textbooks by flashlight after the Dursleys went to sleep. He practiced focusing his mind, sensing the strange energy inside him that had to be magic. Sometimes, when he concentrated hard enough, he could make his pencil roll across the desk without touching it. September 1st came and went, the day he would have boarded the Hogwarts Express. Harry wondered what would have happened if he'd said yes to Hagrid. Instead, he started at Stonewall High, the local comprehensive school, wearing Dudley's old uniform dyed gray. Dudley and his gang made sure Harry had no chance to make friends, threatening anyone who approached him. Teachers, noticing his intelligence, suggested advanced classes, but Aunt Petunia always refused, claiming he was troubled and needed stability, not special treatment. By November, pressure built inside Harry like a shaken soda bottle. His magic responded to his emotions, books flying across his room during nightmares, light bulbs bursting when Uncle Vernon shouted at him. He needed to learn control before something terrible happened. That something came 3 days before Christmas. Harry was washing dishes while the Dursleys decorated the living room. Dudley, bored with hanging ornaments, wandered into the kitchen. He spotted Harry's worn backpack on a chair and rummaged through it, pulling out a sketched diagram of wand movements Harry had copied from one of Hagrid's books. "Dad! Look what the freak's got." Dudley waved the paper. "He's doing that magic stuff." Uncle Vernon stormed in, face contorted with rage. He snatched the paper and grabbed Harry by the collar. "I told you none of that unnaturalness in my house." Harry tried to twist away. "It's just drawings. I'm trying to understand. Understand. Vernon's grip tightened. "I'll help you understand, boy." He dragged Harry to the fireplace where a cheery blaze burned. One by one, Vernon threw in Harry's hidden magical books, the pages curling and blackening. "No." Harry lunged forward, but Vernon shoved him back. "Still think you're special? Still think you're better than normal people?" Vernon's eyes bulged dangerously. "Your parents thought that too. Look where it got them." Something snapped inside Harry. The pressure that had been building for months burst free in a wave of raw magical energy. The fireplace exploded outward, sending flaming debris across the room. Windows shattered. The Christmas tree toppled, ornaments smashing against walls. Dudley screamed as his new video game system sparked and died. Vernon flew backward, slamming into the wall. Petunia shrieked, diving to protect Dudley. Harry stood in the center of the chaos, a wind whipping around him though all windows were closed. His eyes glowed with an eerie green light. Broken glass and splintered furniture hovered around him like a protective swarm. "Don't ever speak about my parents again," he whispered, but his voice carried clearly through the room. Then his energy drained suddenly. The floating debris crashed to the floor as Harry collapsed to his knees, vision swimming. Vernon struggled to his feet, nose bleeding and eyes wild with fear and hatred. You monster. I'll kill you for this." He lunged for the fallen fireplace poker, swinging it toward Harry's head. Harry tried to move, too exhausted to dodge. The poker stopped mid-air, inches from Harry's face. "That's quite enough, I think," came a smooth female voice from the doorway. A tall woman stood silhouetted against the winter evening. Her dark hair was streaked with silver and pulled back in a practical knot. She wore simple black clothes under an open coat, and her eyes, sharp and knowing, took in the scene with a single glance. "Mr. Potter," she said calmly, as though addressing him across a dinner table rather than a demolished living room. "It appears you're having some difficulty controlling your magic. Perhaps I can help." She flicked her wrist and the poker wrenched from Vernon's grip, clattering harmlessly to the floor. "Who the ruddy hell are you?" Vernon bellowed, though he didn't approach her. "Elara Nightshade." She stepped fully into the room, unmindful of the glass crunching beneath her boots. "Independent magical practitioner, occasional consultant to those wise enough to seek my services, and at present, very interested in why Harry Potter is destroying his relative's home instead of attending Hogwarts." She offered Harry her hand. He hesitated, then took it, letting her pull him to his feet. "You should leave, Potter," she said quietly. "This situation has become untenable." "He's not going anywhere." Vernon blustered. "He's destroyed our home. He'll pay for this." Elara didn't even glance at Vernon. "Mr. Potter, do you have possessions you wish to take with you?" Harry nodded mutely. "Collect them. Quickly." Harry ran upstairs, shoving clothes and his few valuables into his school backpack. When he returned, Elara stood in exactly the same spot, though Vernon had retreated to stand protectively in front of Petunia and Dudley. "I've modified their memories," she told Harry conversationally. "They'll believe a gas leak caused the explosion. The police will find evidence to support this conclusion." "You can do that?" Harry asked, fascinated despite himself. "Memory manipulation is considered ethically questionable by the ministry." She smiled thinly. "I consider leaving children with abusive guardians ethically questionable, so we're even." She gestured toward the door. "Shall we? Before the authorities arrive?" Harry followed her out into the cold night, snow beginning to fall around them. "Why are you helping me?" he asked as they walked briskly down Privet Drive. "I've been watching you, Mr. Potter." She didn't slow her pace. "Since you refused your Hogwarts letter, quite unprecedented, I might add. I was curious what kind of child would turn down such an opportunity." "You've been spying on me." "Observing," she corrected. "There's a difference. After Hagrid's visit, I expected Dumbledore to send someone else to convince you. When no one came, I grew concerned. Tonight confirmed my suspicions. You've been left adrift with growing magical power and no training." They reached the end of the street where a sleek black motorcycle waited. Elara handed Harry a helmet. "I don't even know you," Harry protested. "How do I know you're not working for Voldemort or something?" Elara laughed, a startlingly warm sound from such a composed woman. "Excellent question. Critical thinking will serve you well, Mr. Potter." She considered him thoughtfully. "I can offer 3 pieces of evidence for my trustworthiness. First, if I wished you harm, I could have simply let your uncle bash your brains in back there. Second, I've spoken Voldemort's name, something his followers superstitiously avoid. And third." She rolled up her left sleeve, showing unblemished skin. "No dark mark. Voldemort branded his followers like cattle." "That's good to know," Harry said, still hesitant. "I'm not asking for blind trust, Mr. Potter." Just temporary cooperation until we reach safety. Then you can decide your next move. Harry weighed his options. Stay for the police and try to explain the devastation. Return to the Dursleys after Elara's memory charm wore off. Take a chance on this strange, confident witch. He put on the helmet. Elara's cottage sat on the edge of a dense forest, its stone walls almost indistinguishable from the rocky hillside behind it. Inside, it defied dimensional logic, much larger than its exterior suggested, with a central room featuring comfortable furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a large fireplace. Make yourself comfortable, Elara said, hanging her coat on a wrought iron hook. Tea. Something stronger. You've had quite a shock. Just water, Harry said, still standing awkwardly by the door, backpack clutched to his chest. Elara filled 2 glasses from a pitcher and handed one to Harry. You're not a prisoner here. The door remains unlocked. But I'd advise against wandering outside until morning, the forest has protections that can confuse the unprepared. Harry took a cautious sip. So, are you going to take me to Hogwarts now? Is that what you want? She asked, settling into an armchair and gesturing for Harry to take the one opposite. No, Harry admitted, finally sitting. But everyone seems determined to make my decisions for me. Hence your refusal of Hagrid's invitation. Elara nodded. An understandable response to a lifetime of control and misinformation. Tell me, Mr. Potter, what do you want? The question startled Harry. No adult had ever asked him that before. I want to understand, he said slowly. About magic. About my parents. About why Voldemort killed them and tried to kill me. And I want to learn how to control, whatever happened back there. So I never hurt anyone by accident. All reasonable desires. Elara sipped her water. I can help with most of those, if you wish. But I'm not Hogwarts. I don't offer a standardized education or a dormitory full of peers. I research magical principles independently, occasionally taking on students with unique potential. Why would you want me as a student? Because you interest me, she said simply. You've shown remarkable magical potential tonight, wandless, emotionally driven, but extraordinarily powerful. And you've demonstrated unusual independence of thought for an 11-year-old. Both qualities I value. What would I have to do? In return, I mean. Learn. Grow. Eventually contribute to my research. For now, basic household help would suffice. She set down her glass. But before you decide, let me be transparent about the complications. Albus Dumbledore and the Ministry of Magic will be looking for you after tonight's incident. They'll detect the magical signature. By helping you, I place myself in opposition to powerful institutions. I don't want to cause trouble for you. Trouble finds me regardless, Mr. Potter. I merely wish you to understand the situation. Her expression softened slightly. Rest tonight. In the morning, I'll tell you about your parents, the truth, not the sanitized version Hagrid likely presented. Then you can decide whether to stay and learn from me, or let me help you find another path. Harry slept in a small but comfortable bedroom, his dreams filled with swirling magic and shattering glass. He woke to sunlight streaming through curtains and the smell of frying bacon. For a disorienting moment, he thought he was back at Privet Drive, about to be ordered to finish cooking breakfast. Then he remembered, the explosion, Elara, the cottage. He found her in the kitchen, effortlessly directing multiple cooking tasks with small wandless gestures while reading from a thick, ancient-looking book. Good morning, she said without looking up. Hungry? Harry's stomach growled in response. Elara closed her book and served him eggs, bacon, and toast, joining him at the small table. I've checked the news, she said. The gas explosion at Privet Drive is being investigated. Your relatives are staying with your aunt's sister while repairs are arranged. No mention of you, the memory charm is holding. Harry nodded, mouth full of the best eggs he'd ever tasted. Today, As promised, we'll talk about your parents and your history, Elara continued. Some of it will be difficult to hear. Are you prepared for that? Harry set down his fork. Yes. After breakfast, Elara led him to her study, a circular room with a domed ceiling painted with constellations that actually moved. A large wooden table dominated the space, covered with maps, books, and what looked like scientific instruments. I met your parents, she began, pulling a photo album from a shelf. Not well, I worked independently even then. But our paths crossed during the war against Voldemort. She opened the album to show a moving photograph of a group of people. Harry immediately spotted his father. The resemblance was startling, standing beside a beautiful red-haired woman with Harry's own green eyes. Lily and James Potter, Elara confirmed. This was the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore's resistance organization fighting Voldemort. For the next hour, Elara told Harry about his parents, not just their deaths, but their lives. James Potter, the talented troublemaker from an old wizarding family. Lily Evans, the brilliant Muggle-born witch who revolutionized charm theory. Their defiance of Voldemort, their friends, their work for the Order. They went into hiding because of a prophecy, Elara said, her voice growing more serious. Voldemort learned of a prediction that a child born as the 7th month died would have power to vanquish him. 2 children fit this description, you and another boy, Neville Longbottom. Voldemort chose to target you. Why me? Harry asked. That's the question, isn't it? Elara's expression turned thoughtful. Perhaps because like him, you're a half-blood, one magical parent, one not. Perhaps because he sensed particular power in you. Dumbledore might know more. She explained how the Potters had used the Fidelius charm for protection, a spell hiding a secret in a single person's soul. Your parents trusted the wrong friend, Elara said grimly. Sirius Black was widely believed to be their secret keeper, the one person who could reveal their location. But I've found evidence suggesting a last-minute switch to Peter Pettigrew, who betrayed them to Voldemort. Sirius Black, Harry repeated. The man in Azkaban? Hagrid mentioned him. Yes. Imprisoned without trial for supposedly killing Pettigrew and 12 Muggles after your parents' murder. Elara's mouth tightened. The evidence never quite added up for me. She continued the story, how Voldemort killed James and Lily, how he tried to kill Harry but somehow failed, his curse rebounding and destroying his body. Is he dead? Harry asked. No, Elara said flatly. Diminished, disembodied, but not destroyed. His followers scattered, many claimed they'd been bewitched, buying their freedom with gold and influence. Dumbledore placed you with your mother's sister, supposedly for protection through blood magic. Fat lot of good that did, Harry muttered. Indeed. Which brings us to your current situation. Dumbledore believes you must return to your relatives for this protection to continue. The Ministry will soon be looking for the magical disturbance at Privet Drive. You have decisions to make. Harry stared at the photo of his parents, watching them smile and wave. I want to learn magic, he said finally. Real magic, not just waving a wand and saying Latin words. I want to understand it like my mom did. And I need to be ready, if Voldemort's still out there. A practical approach. Elara nodded approvingly. I can teach you magical theory, practical applications, and control. My methods differ from Hogwarts, less structured, more intuitive. We'd start with wandless techniques to harness your natural abilities. What about the Ministry? And Dumbledore? We'll need to stay mobile, at least initially, Elara acknowledged. I have several properties with protective enchantments. As for Dumbledore. She hesitated. He's a complex man. His intentions toward you are protective, but he has a tendency to believe he alone knows best. He'll try to bring you back under his influence. Harry thought of the Dursleys, of the cupboard, of 11 years of neglect sanctioned by this supposedly great wizard. I'm not going back, he said firmly. Not to the Dursleys, not to Dumbledore's plans. I'll learn from you, if you'll teach me. Very well. Elara stood. We begin today. But first, there's someone we need to contact. Someone who deserves to know you're safe, and who might provide additional protection. Who? Your godfather, Sirius Black. Breaking into Azkaban wasn't part of Harry's plan when he'd woken up that morning. Yet here he was, huddled in a small magical boat beside Elara, approaching the forbidding fortress rising from the North Sea. We're not actually breaking in, Elara corrected when Harry voiced this thought. We're exploiting a bureaucratic loophole in visiting regulations that the Ministry has conveniently forgotten exists. The island loomed closer, a monolithic structure of dark stone against grey sky. Even from a distance, Harry felt a creeping coldness that had nothing to do with the December weather. Dementors, Elara murmured, handing Harry a chocolate bar. Eat this. It helps counter their effects. What are Dementors? The guards. They feed on positive emotions, leaving only despair. Most prisoners go mad within months. Harry shivered, breaking off a piece of chocolate. And we're going in there? Voluntarily? With protection. Elara removed a silver pendant from her pocket, shaped like a tree with spreading branches. This will shield us partially from their effects. And I can produce a Patronus, the spell that repels them, if necessary. She steered their boat toward a small, hidden dock rather than the main entrance. The prison's anti-apparition wards extend to the island, but not visitor restrictions. The official dock is watched, but this one. She smiled slightly. Let's call it a service entrance. They disembarked, Elara tapping the pendant with her wand. A shimmering dome of silver light surrounded them. Stay close, she instructed. The pendant creates a bubble of protection, but it's limited. They approached a weathered door set into the rock face. Elara pressed her palm against it, whispering words Harry couldn't catch. The door swung open, revealing a narrow stone corridor. How do you know all this? Harry whispered as they slipped inside. I once consulted on enhancing Azkaban's security, Elara replied softly. The Ministry doesn't realize how thoroughly I studied the existing structures. They moved through dimly lit passages, Elara navigating with confidence. Twice they froze as floating dark shapes drifted past intersecting corridors, Dementors, Harry presumed, though he couldn't see them clearly through the silver haze surrounding them. Finally, they reached a heavy door with high security etched above it. Elara produced a small vial of clear liquid. Veritaserum, she explained. Truth potion. If Black truly betrayed your parents, this will confirm it. If not. She left the thought unfinished. She unlocked the door with a complex wand movement, and they entered a dark, narrow hallway lined with cells. Anguished moans and muttered ravings echoed off stone walls. Harry's chocolate did little to ward off the bone-deep chill and creeping despair. There, Elara pointed. Cell 713. A gaunt figure sat hunched against the far wall of the tiny cell. His black hair hung in matted tangles around a face so emaciated it barely looked human. When he raised his head at their approach, Harry gasped, his eyes held a terrible awareness unlike the vacant stares of other prisoners they'd passed. Hello, Sirius, Elara said quietly. The man blinked slowly, as if struggling to process her presence. Elara Nightshade? His voice was a hoarse rasp from disuse. Am I finally going mad then? Proper hallucinations at last? Not a hallucination, she replied, unlocking his cell with another wand movement. And I've brought someone you should meet. Sirius's gaze shifted to Harry, confusion giving way to shock. James, he whispered, struggling to his feet. No, not James. Harry. Harry. Harry stepped forward, heart pounding. Yes. I'm Harry Potter. Sirius reached a skeletal hand through the bars, stopping just short of touching Harry's face. You look so much like your father. But your eyes. My mother's, Harry finished. I know. A single tear tracked down Sirius's filthy cheek. You shouldn't be here. This place, it's not safe. Neither was where Dumbledore left me, Harry said bluntly. Sirius's expression hardened. Petunia and her walrus husband. I told Dumbledore they were the worst sort of muggles. Mr. Black, Elara interrupted. We have limited time. I need to ask you directly, did you betray Lily and James Potter to Voldemort? No, Sirius said immediately, gripping the bars. I would have died before betraying them. Were you their secret keeper? No. That's what we wanted people to think. I was the obvious choice, so we switched to Peter at the last minute. Peter Pettigrew was the secret keeper. Peter betrayed them. Did you kill Peter Pettigrew and 12 muggles on November 1st, 1981? No. Peter shouted that I betrayed Lily and James, then cut off his own finger, blew up the street with his wand behind his back, and transformed into a rat to escape. He's an animagus. We all became animagi to help Remus during full moons. Elara glanced at Harry. He's telling the truth. No hesitation, consistent details, and he volunteered information I didn't directly ask for. Then why is he still here? Harry demanded. If he's innocent, because I never received a trial, Sirius said bitterly. Barty Crouch sent me straight to Azkaban. Everyone knew I was guilty. That ends today, Elara said decisively. She pulled a second vial from her pocket. Polyjuice potion. It will temporarily transform someone to look like another person. I have a sample from a low-security prisoner who died last night, natural causes, before you ask. The body won't be discovered for hours. Sirius stared at her. You're breaking me out. Technically, facilitating an exchange of persons, Elara corrected with a thin smile. Drink this, and you'll take his form long enough for us to exit. By the time it wears off, we'll be far from here. And the real body? Will be transfigured to resemble you and placed in this cell. The deceased was terminally ill with no family. His dignity is preserved by serving justice. Sirius looked at Harry again, his gaunt face conflicted. Harry, if I escape, I'll be a fugitive. I won't be able to give you a proper home. I don't need a proper home, Harry interrupted. I need the truth. And maybe a godfather, if you're up for it. Sirius's emaciated face broke into a smile that transformed him, briefly showing the handsome man he must once have been. Always, Promslet. Always. He took the vial with shaking hands and drank. By the time they reached Elara's cottage, night had fallen. Sirius, now returned to his own appearance but freshly bathed and wearing clean clothes, sat wrapped in blankets before the fire, devouring his third bowl of stew. I still don't understand why you helped us, he said to Elara between mouthfuls. We barely knew each other during the war. I've maintained interest in Harry's case over the years, she replied, pouring tea. When he refused his Hogwarts letter, you what? Sirius interrupted, turning to Harry. Harry explained his encounter with Hagrid and his reasons for refusing Hogwarts. Sirius listened intently, frown deepening. But Harry, Hogwarts was your parents' home. They would have wanted, don't, Harry said sharply. Don't tell me what they would have wanted. They're not here. Because someone they trusted betrayed them, and someone else put me with people who hate me. I need to make my own choices now. Sirius set down his bowl, looking stricken. You're right. I'm sorry. He ran a hand through his newly cropped hair. It's just, Hogwarts was where I found my real family. James, Remus. And Peter, Harry pointed out. Sirius flinched. Yes. And Peter. Harry's decision was rational given his information, Elara interjected. And fortuitous, as it happens. At Hogwarts, he would be under constant scrutiny, his development controlled and directed. With us, He can learn at his own pace, following his natural abilities. Us? Sirius raised an eyebrow. I don't recall agreeing to your educational philosophy, Nightshade. Would you prefer I return you to Azkaban? She asked mildly. Sirius barked a laugh, a startling, rusty sound. Point taken. But I want input in Harry's education. James and Lily named me godfather. Acceptable, Elara agreed. Your practical experience will complement my theoretical approach. Once you've recovered your strength, of course. Harry watched this negotiation with growing optimism. For the first time in his life, he had advocates, adults actually discussing his welfare instead of imposing decisions. So what happens now? He asked. First, we move, Elara said. The Ministry will eventually trace the magic at Privet Drive. This cottage is secure but known to some officials. I have a property in northern Scotland, unplottable, heavily warded. I should contact Remus, Sirius said. He'll help us. Carefully, Elara cautioned. Lupin has been reporting to Dumbledore periodically. His loyalty may be divided. Not when he learns the truth, Sirius insisted. And what about my magical training? Harry asked. We begin tomorrow, Elara said simply. First with control exercises, channeling and containing your innate power. Then wandless fundamentals. Eventually, we'll need to procure a wand for you, but anonymously. Sirius, when you're stronger, you can teach Harry the practical magic Hogwarts would have covered. And Dumbledore? Harry asked. Will he just let me disappear? Elara and Sirius exchanged looks. No, Sirius admitted. He'll search for you, Harry. He believes in prophecies and greater goods. He'll think he's protecting you by bringing you back. Then we make sure he doesn't find us, Harry said firmly. And we prepare for when he eventually does. Later that night, as Harry drifted toward sleep in his new room, he realized this strange day had given him something he'd never truly had before, choices. Real choices about his life, his education, his future. Whatever came next, Dumbledore, the Ministry, even Voldemort, he would face it on his own terms. For the first time in his life, Harry Potter fell asleep feeling truly free. Spring sunlight filtered through the high windows of the training room, illuminating motes of dust disturbed by Harry's movements. 6 months had passed since his escape from Privet Drive, transforming him from a scrawny, uncertain boy into a focused young wizard with growing confidence in his abilities. Again, Elara instructed, her voice even. Feel the boundary between your internal magic and the external manifestation. It's like a membrane, permeable but controllable. Harry closed his eyes, centering himself as she taught him. The wooden practice dummy stood 10 feet away, scorched from previous attempts. He extended his awareness, feeling the familiar warm current of magic flowing through his body. Intent shapes reality, he murmured, raising his hand. A bolt of golden energy shot from his palm, striking the dummy squarely in the chest. Unlike his earlier attempts, which had blown the dummy across the room, this bolt drilled a precise hole through the target's heart. Better, Elara nodded approvingly. You're controlling the dispersal pattern. The magic remains concentrated rather than explosive. It's getting easier, Harry said, lowering his hand. Like building a muscle. An apt analogy. Elara walked to the dummy, examining the damage. Your wandless abilities are progressing remarkably. Most wizards spend decades achieving this level of precision, if they ever do. It helps having nothing else to focus on, Harry pointed out. No classes, no homework, no distractions. True. But don't discount your natural affinity. Elara repaired the dummy with a wave of her hand. Your mother had similar talents for intuitive magic. Formal wand movements and incantations constrained her rather than helped her. Harry smiled at the comparison. Elara rarely mentioned his parents without prompting, making her occasional insights particularly valuable. The door swung open, and Sirius entered carrying a stack of books. 6 months of proper nutrition and freedom had transformed him almost as much as Harry. Though still lean, his face had filled out, and his eyes held a lively spark that grew stronger each week. "How's it going, Prongslet?" he asked, setting down the books. "Harry's wandless offensive magic is approaching an EWT level," Elara reported. "His defensive shields need work." "Can't have everything at once," Sirius winked at Harry. Besides, James was rubbish at shields too. Always preferred a good offense. "And how often did that land him in the hospital wing?" Elara asked dryly. "At least once a month," Sirius admitted with a grin. But he had fun getting there. Their Scottish hideaway had proven ideal for Harry's training. The sprawling stone house sat nestled in a highland valley, surrounded by protective enchantments so powerful the building literally couldn't be found unless you already knew its location. Within these secure boundaries, Harry divided his time between magical training with Elara and Sirius, and continuing his non-magical education through correspondence courses. Elara insisted he maintain ties to both worlds. "I found something interesting," Sirius said, patting the books he'd brought. "Old black family grimoires from the library at Grimmauld Place. Slipped in and out last night while Creature was sleeping." Elara raised an eyebrow. "Risky. The house is likely being watched." "By Order members who still think I'm guilty," Sirius countered. "They're watching for a gaunt escapee, not a well-fed dog." His animagus ability had proven invaluable for reconnaissance missions. "What's in the books?" Harry asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Protection spells," Sirius said, his voice turning serious. "Blood wards, specifically. I wanted to understand what Dumbledore might have used at your aunt's house, and how to create better ones." "You think he'll find us?" Harry asked. Neither adult answered immediately. Finally, Elara said, "It's prudent to prepare for that possibility. The longer you remain missing, the more resources Dumbledore will dedicate to finding you. The Prophet's been running weekly features on the missing boy who lived," Sirius added grimly. "Public pressure is mounting." Harry had seen the newspapers. The articles ranged from concerned to hysterical, speculating that he'd been kidnapped by remaining Death Eaters or gone dark himself. One particularly imaginative piece suggested he'd been spirited away to a secret training facility to become the Ministry's superweapon. If they only knew, Harry thought, how close that last one came to his actual situation. "We should discuss our long-term strategy," Elara said, conjuring chairs for them. "You've progressed faster than I anticipated, Harry. Your control has stabilized, your magical core continues to expand, and your theoretical understanding is solid." "Thanks to you," Harry acknowledged. Both his teachers had pushed him hard, but Elara especially demanded excellence in everything she taught. "Perhaps," she allowed. "But you've put in the work. The question now becomes, what next? You've mastered what I'd consider first-year Hogwarts material, plus specialized techniques they don't teach at all." "I still need to learn loads more," Harry protested. "Transfiguration, potions, magical creatures, and you will," Sirius assured him. "But Elara's right. We need to think beyond just your education. About your future in the wizarding world." "What do you mean?" Sirius and Elara exchanged looks. "Harry," Sirius said carefully, "you're not just any wizard. Whether you like it or not, you're the boy who lived. People have expectations." "I didn't ask for that," Harry said, a familiar frustration rising. "No, you didn't," Elara agreed. "But it's a reality we must consider. Eventually, you'll need to engage with the wider magical community. The question is how, when, and on what terms." Harry hadn't thought that far ahead. His focus had been immediate, learning control, understanding his magic, staying hidden from Dumbledore. The idea of rejoining magical society brought mixed feelings. "What are my options?" he asked finally. "You could apply to Hogwarts next year," Sirius suggested. Enter as a second year after passing equivalency exams. I know you refused initially, but with proper preparation and understanding, no, Harry said firmly. I'm not going there. Not with Dumbledore in charge. Beauxbatons or Durmstrang, perhaps, Elara mused. Other magical schools with different approaches. Though your fame would follow you. Or, Sirius said, looking suddenly inspired, we create option 3. I'm listening, Harry said. What if we establish our own small educational cohort? Find other young witches and wizards who might benefit from alternative teaching methods. Create a kind of independent study group that could eventually grow into something more formal. Elara tilted her head, considering. Interesting. There are certainly magical families who prefer home education to Hogwarts. The Lovegoods, for instance. And some half-blood families who want their children to maintain connections to Muggle education. We could start small, Sirius continued, warming to his idea. 3 or 4 students besides Harry. Teach them what we know, bring in specialists for areas where we lack expertise. A shadow school, Harry said, the concept taking shape in his mind. Outside ministry control. Precisely, Sirius grinned. The Marauders Academy of Advanced Magical Arts. We're not calling it that, Elara said flatly, but Harry caught the glimmer of interest in her eyes. The logistics would be challenging. Location, security, finding appropriate students. But possible, Sirius pressed. Yes, she admitted. Possible. Harry considered the idea. His own school, a place where students could learn magic without the prejudices and politics of established institutions. Where Muggleborns wouldn't face discrimination, where practical skills would be valued alongside theory. Where he could belong without being the boy who lived. I like it, he decided. But we'd need to be careful about who we bring in. Extremely, Elara agreed. One wrong choice could expose our location to Dumbledore or the Ministry. We start with people we trust absolutely, Sirius said. Remus, once we've convinced him about me. Maybe Andy, my cousin Andromeda. She never bought into the pure-blood nonsense. I want kids my age too, Harry added. People who could be friends. The word felt strange in his mouth. He'd never had real friends before. We'll find them, Sirius promised, squeezing Harry's shoulder. The right ones. Their planning session was interrupted by a soft chiming sound. Elara stood immediately, expression alert. Perimeter alarm, she explained, moving swiftly to the window. Someone's approaching the outer wards. Sirius drew his wand, a replacement Elara had procured through her connections. Death Eaters? Unlikely. The wards would have triggered differently. Elara peered through the glass. Single individual. Moving slowly. Appears to be Remus Lupin. Sirius's face lit up. Moony. I told you he'd figure it out. Or he's been sent to find us, Elara cautioned. Proximity to the full moon makes legilimency difficult against him, but not impossible. Let me talk to him, Sirius insisted. I'll know if he's been compromised. Fine. But in the secure room. Elara turned to Harry. You'll remain here, out of sight, until we determine his intentions. Harry wanted to protest but understood the precaution. His safety remained their priority. While Sirius and Elara went to intercept Remus, Harry continued practicing his shields, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in his stomach. If Lupin had found them, could Dumbledore be far behind? An hour passed before the door reopened. Sirius entered first, beaming, followed by a shabby-looking man with premature gray in his light brown hair. His face bore scars and a bone-deep weariness, but his amber eyes widened at the sight of Harry. My God, Remus Lupin whispered. You look so much like James. But I have my mother's eyes, Harry finished with a small smile. So I've been told. Harry, "This is Remus Lupin," Sirius said unnecessarily. "My fellow marauder, your father's friend, and now the newest member of our little resistance." "Resistance?" Harry questioned. "Against magical stagnation, ministry control, and Dumbledore's well-meaning but misguided plans for your life," Sirius clarified. Remus approached Harry cautiously, as if afraid he might startle him. "I've been looking for you for months," he said softly. "When Dumbledore announced you'd refused Hogwarts, then disappeared from your relative's home. Did Dumbledore send you to find me?" Harry asked directly. "Initially, yes," Remus admitted. "But I've developed concerns about his methods." When Sirius explained everything, the prophecy, your treatment by the Dursleys, the lack of trial, he shook his head. "I need to make my own judgments now. Moony tracked us through a combination of old marauder techniques and his enhanced senses," Sirius explained proudly. "Clever wolf." "I followed the trail of black family magic," Remus corrected. "Those books you took from Grimmauld Place left a magical signature. Very faint, but detectable to someone with my condition." "And you came alone?" Harry pressed. "No one followed you?" "No one," Remus confirmed. "I've been careful. But others are searching too, Harry. Dumbledore has the Order of the Phoenix regrouping specifically to find you." Elara, who had been silently observing from the doorway, stepped forward. "Then we accelerate our plans. Lupin's arrival is timely, his expertise in defense against the dark arts fills a gap in our curriculum." "Curriculum?" Remus looked confused. "We're starting a school, Moony," Sirius grinned. "A proper one, without all the political nonsense and outdated restrictions. And we want you to teach there." "A school," Remus repeated, looking dazed. "Outside ministry oversight?" "That's highly illegal." "Only if they catch us," Sirius winked. "It's not illegal to educate magical children privately," Elara corrected. "Many pureblood families do so. We're simply expanding the concept." Remus looked at Harry. "And this is what you want?" "Not Hogwarts, where your parents, this is exactly what I want," Harry interrupted firmly. "To learn magic my way. To understand the wizarding world without being controlled by it. And maybe to help other kids who don't fit into the system either." Remus studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You have Lily's determination. She never accepted limitations either." He turned to Sirius and Elara. "I'll need to know your complete security protocols, curriculum plans, and recruitment criteria before I commit. But I'm interested." "That's all we ask, old friend," Sirius clapped him on the shoulder. As the adults fell into detailed discussion about wards and teaching methods, Harry felt a surge of excitement. His refusal of a Hogwarts education had seemed like an end when he made it, a door closing on the magical world. Now he realized it had actually been a beginning, the first step toward creating something entirely new. Harry Potter, who had spent his childhood confined to a cupboard, would build a school without walls. The thought made him smile. Chapter 2, The Alternative Path. Harry ducked as a jet of purple light smashed into the rock face behind him, showering his shoulders with limestone dust. 2 years of constant training had sharpened his reflexes to a knife's edge. "You're telegraphing your attacks, Sirius," Harry called, rolling to his right and coming up with both hands extended. He pushed his magic through his palms, visualizing compression and force. Twin bolts of blue energy shot toward his godfather. Sirius deflected one with a casual flick of his wand but had to dive sideways to avoid the second. "Telegraphing? Me? The great Padfoot?" He came up grinning despite the fresh scorch mark on his sleeve. "I let you see that one coming." "Sure you did." Harry pressed his advantage, weaving between the ancient standing stones that dotted this remote Scottish hillside. At 13, he'd grown several inches but remained lean and quick. He fired 3 rapid blasts, not to hurt Sirius, just to keep him moving. "Not bad. Sirius blocked 2 and sidestepped the third. But you're still thinking linearly. Magic isn't just about. Harry didn't wait for the lecture. He slapped his palm against the nearest standing stone, channeling magic into the ancient rock. The stone hummed, its dormant runic markings flaring to life with blue-white light that spread to the neighboring monoliths. Sirius's eyes widened. Now that's just show. The entire stone circle pulsed, and Sirius found himself frozen midward, caught in a web of visible ley lines that Harry had activated through the standing stones. Harry wiped sweat from his forehead and walked casually to where Sirius stood paralyzed. You were saying something about linear thinking? Remus Lupin's laugh echoed across the hillside as he approached with Elara. He's got you there, Padfoot. MMPH. Sirius managed, eyes blazing indignantly. Innovative, Elara observed, examining the glowing network Harry had created. You're utilizing the site's natural magical convergence. Who taught you that? Nobody. Harry grinned. I read about ley lines in that book from the Chinese mystic we met in Edinburgh. Then I noticed these stones were placed at junction points. Figured I could try activating them during a duel. Elara released Sirius with a wave of her hand. He stumbled forward, shaking out his limbs. Bloody brilliant, but fighting dirty, Sirius complained, though pride shone in his eyes. Using the environment against me. No such thing as fighting dirty when your life's on the line, Harry countered, a lesson drilled into him through countless training sessions. The past 2 years had transformed Harry from a novice barely controlling accidental magic into a confident young wizard with techniques that would baffle most adult practitioners. Their nomadic lifestyle had proven unexpectedly educational, moving between safe houses, ancient magical sites, and hidden communities of independent witches and wizards who existed outside traditional magical society. We should head back, Remus suggested, glancing at the darkening sky. The new safe house is still settling, and I need to strengthen the concealment charms before nightfall. Their current home, a converted lighthouse on a tiny island off Wales, offered natural isolation plus magical protections. They never stayed anywhere longer than 3 months, always moving before detection risk grew too high. As they hiked back toward their concealed apparition point, Harry spotted a flash of silver through the trees. Hold up, he murmured, dropping into a defensive crouch. His 3 mentors instantly went on alert, wands ready. 2 years of periodic ministry close calls had honed their reactions. I don't sense anyone nearby, Remus whispered, his heightened werewolf perception scanning the forest. Harry pointed toward a flicker of movement. There. Something small. Elara stepped forward cautiously, then relaxed. It's a Patronus messenger. Partially corporeal. The silvery wisp solidified into an otter that swam through the air toward them. When it reached Harry, it opened its mouth and spoke in a girl's anxious voice, Harry Potter, I need your help. I've researched extensively and believe you're receiving this message. I'm at the coordinates enclosed. Please come if you can. It's urgent. The otter dissolved, leaving a shimmering set of numbers hanging in the air. A student, Remus identified. That's a 5th or 6th year casting, impressive for a Patronus messenger. It could be a trap, Sirius warned. The ministry's getting desperate to find you. Harry studied the fading numbers. The location's in the Forest of Dean. That's, 200 miles south. 187, Elara corrected automatically. Harry, Sirius is right. This requires caution. But if someone really needs help. Harry looked between his guardians. After 2 years living outside the system, helping magical people whom traditional institutions had failed or excluded, he couldn't ignore a direct plea. We'll go together, Elara decided. Remus and I will establish a perimeter. Sirius, you take point in dog form. Harry stays concealed until we confirm it's safe. I can handle myself, Harry objected. Undoubtedly, Elara's tone left no room for argument. But your safety remains our priority. 40 minutes later, after operating to a nearby location and approaching on foot, they reached the coordinates, a small clearing in the ancient forest. A teenage girl with bushy brown hair paced nervously beside a makeshift tent. Books and parchments were spread across a flat rock, and a small blue fire burned in a jar at her feet. Sirius, in his shaggy black dog form, circled the perimeter twice before giving a low bark, the all-clear signal. "She's alone," Remus confirmed quietly. "No magical signatures nearby except hers." "I recognize her," Harry said, studying the girl through the foliage. "From those newspaper clippings about Hogwarts. She's Hermione Granger, won some big academic award last term." "The Muggle-born prodigy," Elara nodded. "Highest recorded test scores in 50 years. Harry stepped into the clearing. The girl, Hermione, whirled around, wand instantly in hand. "Who's there?" Her voice was steady despite her obvious tension. "You sent for me," Harry said simply, lowering his hood. Hermione Granger's eyes widened. "Harry Potter. You actually came." She lowered her wand slightly. "I wasn't sure the spell would work. I modified the standard Patronus messenger to locate you through magical resonance rather than known location, which technically shouldn't be possible according to Marshfield's third law of magical communication, but I theorized that. Why did you call me?" Harry interrupted her academic spiral. "Right. Sorry." Hermione took a deep breath. "It's my parents. They're dentists, Muggle doctors for teeth. 3 months ago, they were exposed to a cursed object that came through their office. A patient brought in an ancient-looking tooth as a curiosity, but it was actually a cursed molar from a 14th-century dark wizard." She gestured to her research materials. "The curse is progressive. St. Mungo's identified it but claimed nothing could be done since they're Muggles with no natural magical resistance. Hogwarts has been useless. Professor McGonagall sympathizes but says the school can't intervene in external medical matters, and Dumbledore is too busy searching for you." Her voice cracked slightly. "My parents are dying, and the magical world that welcomed me so enthusiastically now says their lives aren't worth saving because they weren't born with magic." Harry felt Elara and Remus move up beside him, having overheard the explanation. "Show me your research," Elara requested, stepping forward. "I've dealt with artifact curses before." Hermione eyed Elara warily. "Who are you?" "My teacher," Harry said simply. That seemed enough for Hermione, who immediately led Elara to her research station. "I've traced the artifact to Gorbin Maldegrift, a dark wizard who specialized in delayed action curses against Muggles. The tooth contains a magical parasite that's slowly replacing their bone marrow with a fungal growth. Standard counter curses have proven ineffective because Muggle physiology processes magical energy differently," Elara finished, already scanning Hermione's notes. "The standard approaches assume a magical core that can be used to fight the curse from within." "Exactly." Hermione looked at Elara with newfound respect. "That's what St. Mungo's missed. They kept trying to strengthen my parents' non-existent magical cores instead of addressing the physiological differences." Harry watched the two brilliant minds connect, already seeing the puzzle from multiple angles. Meanwhile, Remus had begun examining Hermione's spell diagrams while Sirius, now back in human form but staying in the shadows, secured their perimeter. "Where are your parents now?" Harry asked. "Hidden in a Muggle hospital under false names," Hermione said grimly. "I've been using Confundus charms on the doctors to prevent them from running tests that would reveal the fungal growth. They think it's an unusual infection they're treating with antibiotics, but that only buys time." "Smart," Harry acknowledged. "How long do they have?" 2 weeks, maybe less." Her composed facade cracked slightly. "I've tried everything, Harry. Literally everything. You're my last hope. People whisper about you, the boy who rejected Hogwarts, who's learning magic beyond ministry control. They say you've been studying healing techniques the traditional wizarding world ignores." Harry exchanged glances with Elara, who nodded subtly. "We can help," Harry said. "But not here. We need equipment, reference materials." "My parents can't be moved far," Hermione protested. "The curse accelerates with magical transportation." "Then we bring what we need to them," Harry decided. He turned to Elara. "The technique we learned from that Aboriginal healer in Australia, combined with the Tibetan extraction method," she agreed. "It might work. We'd need mandrake root, obsidian focusing crystals. I have those." Hermione interrupted, pulling open her beaded bag. "I've collected everything mentioned in the research, even obscure components." She began extracting an impossible quantity of items from the small bag. "Extension charm?" Harry raised an eyebrow, impressed. "I needed something to carry all my books and supplies," she said matter-of-factly. "The standard charm only allows for dimensional expansion of 300%, but I modified it to." "Hermione," Harry cut her off gently. "Your parents." "Focus." She blushed. "Right. Sorry. It's just, I don't often get to talk to people who understand these things." "Not even at Hogwarts?" Harry asked, genuinely curious about the school he'd rejected. Hermione's expression darkened. "Hogwarts teaches standardized magic from centuries-old textbooks. Ask questions that challenge convention, and you're told to focus on the approved curriculum. Propose new applications, and you're reminded about ministry regulations." She shook her head in frustration. "It's not education, it's indoctrination." "And yet you're top of your class," Remus noted, joining the conversation. "Playing their game doesn't mean I believe in it," she replied sharply. "I thought Hogwarts would be a gateway to understanding magic's true potential. Instead, it's limiting." Harry felt a sudden kinship with this intense, brilliant girl whose frustrations mirrored thoughts he'd had during his own magical journey. "Let's save your parents," he said. "Then we can talk about better ways to learn magic." The Muggle hospital room looked ordinary except for the complex network of shimmering magic Elara and Harry had woven around the two unconscious patients. Hermione stood anxiously nearby while Remus maintained privacy wards around the room, ensuring no hospital staff would interrupt them. Sirius kept watch in dog form outside the door. "The curse has penetrated deeper than I expected," Elara murmured, her hands hovering over Hermione's father, magical diagnosis symbols glowing between her fingers. "The fungal network has integrated with their nervous systems." "Can you remove it?" Hermione asked, voice tight with worry. "Not conventionally," Harry answered before Elara could. "But we don't do conventional." Over the past 2 years, he'd developed a particular affinity for healing magic, perhaps, Elara suggested, because of his own miraculous survival of the killing curse. He had an intuitive understanding of how magic interacted with living bodies. "I'll need your help," Harry told Hermione. "You have a connection to them that we don't, it'll strengthen the extraction." Hermione nodded resolutely. "Tell me what to do." Harry positioned her between her parents' beds, then took his place opposite her. Elara stood at the foot of the beds, coordinating the complex magical working. "We're going to create a purification circuit," Harry explained. "Magic flowing from me, through you, into your parents, and back to me. The cursed material will be caught in the flow and diverted." "That's not possible according to Hogwarts healing theory," Hermione frowned. "Magical circuits require all participants to have active magical cores." "Hogwarts healing theory is 3 centuries outdated," Elara said dismissively. "Aboriginal healers have been treating mixed magical/non-magical families this way for millennia." Harry placed obsidian crystals at key points around the room, anchoring their spell to the physical space. "The trick is using your magic as a bridge. You're related to them, your magic recognizes their biological patterns." He guided Hermione through the initial stages, establishing her magical connection to her parents, opening her own energy to flow between them. The room hummed with power as Harry completed the circuit, his own magic flowing into the system. "I can feel it," Hermione whispered, eyes wide with wonder. "I can feel them." Now for the extraction. Harry nodded to Elara, who began a low, rhythmic chant in a language neither teen recognized. The air shimmered as their combined magic penetrated deeper into the Grangers' bodies. Harry felt the resistance, the dark curse fighting back, tightening its hold. He pushed harder, his face tightening with concentration. "Something's blocking us," he muttered. "The curse has defensive measures." Elara's chanting intensified. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she wove additional power into their working. "It's failing," Hermione said desperately. "I can feel it slipping." Harry made a split-second decision. "I need direct contact," he said, moving to place his hands directly on Mr. Granger's chest. "Hermione, do the same with your mother." "But the magical backlash," Elara warned. "Will hit me, not them," Harry finished. "I can handle it." Before anyone could object further, Harry pushed his magic directly into Mr. Granger's body, bypassing the careful structure they'd created. Raw power flowed through his hands, seeking out the cursed fungus throughout the man's system. The curse retaliated instantly. Dark magic lashed back along Harry's connection, searing through his nervous system like liquid fire. He gritted his teeth, refusing to break contact. "Harry!" Hermione cried, seeing his pain. "Keep going," he gasped. "Follow what I'm doing, with your mother." Hermione hesitated only briefly before placing her hands on her mother's chest, mimicking Harry's technique. Her face contorted with pain as she, too, felt the curse's backlash. Together, they forced their magic deeper, seeking every tendril of the magical fungus. Harry visualized his power as cleansing fire, burning away the infection without harming healthy tissue. The curse fought viciously, but Harry had faced worse pain in his training. Elara abandoned her chant and moved to support Harry, one hand on his back channeling additional power into his efforts. With her help, Harry finally located the curse's anchor point, a tiny fragment of the original tooth that had magically replicated inside both Grangers. "There," he hissed. "Hermione, the sternum, can you feel it?" "Yes," she gasped through her pain. "On 3, we pull it out. 1, 2, 3. They yanked their magic back simultaneously, extracting the curse's anchor. Dark, fungal material followed, drawn out of the Grangers' bodies like poison from a wound. It coalesced into a writhing black mass above the beds. Elara immediately contained it within a shimmering magical barrier. "Burn it, Harry." Harry didn't hesitate. He thrust both hands toward the contained curse and released a concentrated blast of magical fire. The fungal mass shrieked, an inhuman sound that made the windows rattle, before disintegrating into ash. The room fell silent. Harry swayed on his feet, magically exhausted. Hermione looked equally drained but immediately began checking her parents' vital signs. "Their colors improving," she reported, voice trembling with hope. "Heart rates normalizing." Elara conducted her own magical examination. "The curse is gone," she confirmed. "They'll need time to recover from the physiological damage, but they'll live." Hermione's composure finally broke. She sobbed once, then threw her arms around Harry. "Thank you," she whispered fiercely. Harry, awkward with physical contact after years of isolation, patted her back uncertainly. "You did half the work," he reminded her. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "That magic, I've never seen anything like it. It wasn't in any book, any curriculum." "That's kind of the point," Harry said with a small smile. "Some magic you have to discover, not just learn. Would you teach me?" The question burst from Hermione with startling intensity. "Not just this healing technique, everything. The way you learn magic, without restrictions." Harry glanced at Elara, who had finished stabilizing the Grangers and now watched the teens with interest. "It's not an easy path," Harry warned. "We move constantly. We're hunted by the Ministry, by Dumbledore." "I don't care," Hermione interrupted. "I've spent 2 years at Hogwarts trying to fit their mold, and for what? When my parents truly needed magical help, the entire system abandoned them because they're muggles. Her eyes flashed. I want real knowledge, not carefully curated lessons that maintain the status quo. Harry recognized the determination in her expression. He saw it in his own mirror every day. We were already planning to expand our little group, he said slowly. To create something new. A different approach to magical education, Elara elaborated. Neither bound to tradition like Hogwarts nor completely unstructured like independent study. Hope bloomed on Hermione's face. You mean, a new school? Eventually, Harry nodded. First we need the right people. Those willing to learn differently, think differently. I'm in, Hermione said instantly. Whatever it takes. But. She glanced at her recovering parents. I need to ensure they're safe first. Of course, Elara agreed. We can help establish protections for them, make them effectively invisible to magical detection. And after that? Hermione asked. Harry smiled. After that, we show you what magic really is. The July sun beat down on the rocky Welsh coast as Harry perched on a boulder, eyes closed in concentration. 3 months had passed since Hermione Granger had joined their unconventional family, bringing her voracious intellect and methodical approach to their free-flowing magical exploration. You're thinking too hard again, Harry said without opening his eyes. Beside him, Hermione huffed in frustration. I'm following the visualization exactly as you showed me. That's the problem. You're following, not feeling. They were attempting wandless levitation, simple for Harry after years of practice, but challenging for Hermione despite her prodigious magical talent. Her Hogwarts training had emphasized wand movements and precise incantations, creating mental barriers to more intuitive magical expression. Harry opened his eyes to see Hermione glaring at the rock she was attempting to lift. Her fingers were positioned perfectly, her brow furrowed in concentration. Forget everything Hogwarts taught you, he suggested, not for the first time. Magic isn't in the words or wand movements, those are just training wheels. Easy for you to say, she grumbled. You didn't spend 2 years being marked down for improper wrist rotation. Harry picked up a pebble and tossed it into the air. Without any visible effort, he caused it to hover, spin, and dance between them. Don't visualize lifting the rock, he advised. Visualize the rock as already weightless, just waiting for your permission to move. Hermione closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and tried again. The rock wobbled slightly, rose an inch, then clattered back down. Progress. Harry grinned. Barely, she sighed. You make it look so effortless. 2 years of daily practice, he reminded her. Plus. He hesitated. I think not going to Hogwarts actually helped me. I never learned the limitations they teach there. Hermione considered this. Like how they insist certain spells are impossible without a wand, or that you can't combine magical traditions without dangerous interference patterns. Exactly. Elara says magical education is as much about teaching boundaries as techniques. The question is whether those boundaries are real or artificial. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by Sirius's voice calling from the lighthouse. Harry. Hermione. Come quickly. They jogged back to find everyone gathered in the main room. Remus looked concerned, Elara thoughtful, and Sirius oddly excited. What's happened? Harry asked. We've been discovered, Remus said grimly. Ministry detection spells registered a surge of unusual magic near this location 2 days ago. Harry glanced at Hermione, who winced. They'd been experimenting with combining elemental magic. Her idea to blend fire and water magic had created spectacular but highly traceable effects. We need to relocate, Elara said calmly. I've already begun transferring essentials to the contingency location. Before we go, Sirius interjected, there's something else. He handed Harry a copy of the Daily Prophet. Page 3. Harry opened the newspaper, Hermione reading over his shoulder. The headline jumped out immediately: Hogwarts student disappears, connected to missing Potter. Beneath it was a school photograph of Hermione alongside a statement from Dumbledore expressing grave concern about her unexplained absence from her home. The article strongly implied she had either been kidnapped by the same dark elements that had taken Harry or had run away to join him. "My parents," Hermione gasped. "If they're looking for me, they're safe," Remus assured her. "The protections we placed are holding. The Ministry interviewed them, but the memory modifications we created held firm. As far as they know, you're at a summer academic program in Switzerland. We need to move quickly," Elara said. "But there's a complication." She nodded to Sirius. "Someone else is looking for Harry," he explained. "Someone from Hogwarts, but not sent by Dumbledore. A student." "Who?" Harry asked. "A Slytherin girl," Sirius replied. "She approached one of my contacts in Hogsmeade, asking discreetly about Harry's whereabouts. Said she had information of mutual benefit to share." "It's obviously a trap," Hermione declared. "Slytherins aren't exactly known for their straightforward dealings." "Normally I'd agree," Remus said, "but my source says she seemed genuinely nervous, like she was acting alone. She left this." He handed Harry a sealed envelope. Harry examined it cautiously before breaking the wax seal. Inside was a short note in elegant handwriting: "Potter, I have information about Dumbledore's search for you and the Dark Lord's interest in your absence. I also have a proposition regarding alternative magical education. I can help you remain hidden. You can help me escape a predetermined fate. If interested, I'll be at the coordinates below at sunset on July 31st. I'll come alone and unarmed. You may take whatever precautions you deem necessary. Daphne Greengrass," Hermione frowned. "She's in my year. Keeps to herself mostly, even among Slytherins. Brilliant at potions and ancient runes. The Greengrasses are an old pureblood family," Sirius added. "Neutral during the last war, didn't side with Voldemort but didn't oppose him either. Which makes her approach even more interesting," Elara observed. "What would drive a carefully neutral pureblood to seek out Harry Potter?" Harry reread the note. "Only one way to find out." "You can't seriously be considering meeting her," Hermione protested. "With proper precautions, why not?" Harry countered. "We check the location beforehand, set up escape routes, verify she's alone." "It's your birthday," Remus noted. "The date can't be coincidental." "A gesture of good faith, perhaps," Elara suggested. "Or a recognition of its magical significance." After further debate, they agreed to proceed with extreme caution. The meeting would happen at a different location than the one Greengrass suggested, close enough to observe her arrival, far enough to escape if necessary. They would relocate their base immediately after, regardless of the outcome. The coordinates led to a small island in the Hebrides, uninhabited except for seabirds and protected by natural mists that discouraged Muggle navigation. Harry, Sirius, and Remus arrived hours early, establishing security measures while Elara and Hermione prepared the new safe house. "She's coming by boat," Remus reported, lowering his omnioculars. "Small rowboat, no visible escort." Harry nodded, adjusting the hood of his cloak. The evening wind carried salt spray and the cries of gulls, but no hint of other human presence. "I'll approach first," he decided. "You two stay hidden but ready." The small figure rowing steadily toward the island appeared to be exactly what she claimed, a teenage girl arriving alone. As she pulled the boat onto the rocky shore, Harry could see she wore plain black robes with no Hogwarts insignia or house colors. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and she carried no visible wand. Harry waited until she had climbed to the meeting point, a flat area surrounded by standing stones, before making his presence known. "That's far enough," he called, stepping from behind a boulder. Daphne Greengrass turned calmly, showing no surprise. "Potter," she acknowledged with a slight nod. "Thank you for coming. You said you had information, Harry replied, maintaining his distance. And a proposition. Her blue eyes assessed him coolly. Directly to business, then. First, information. Dumbledore has expanded his search beyond Britain. He's convinced you've been taken to the continent, possibly to Durmstrang's territory. The Ministry is focusing on magical settlements in Wales and Scotland. Old news, Harry said, though it was helpful confirmation. What about Voldemort? If she flinched at the name, she hid it well. That's more complicated. He hasn't physically returned, but his influence is growing. My father has been approached by former Death Eaters seeking alliances. They're particularly interested in your continued absence from Hogwarts. Why? Because it creates opportunity, she said simply. Your refusal to attend Hogwarts was unexpected. It disrupted plans, both Dumbledore's and the Dark Lord's. Now both sides are recalibrating, trying to locate and influence you before the other. Harry considered her words. They aligned with what they'd already pieced together, but hearing it confirmed by someone connected to pure blood circles was valuable. And your proposition? He asked. I want out, she stated flatly. Out of the pure-blood marriage market, out of the political maneuvering, out of a future where my only value is as a broodmare for some appropriate alliance. Her bluntness surprised him. And you think I can help with that? How exactly? I know you're learning magic outside approved channels. I know Granger has joined you, yes, that information is already circulating. She took a step forward. I want in. Not just for myself, but for my sister Astoria. She starts Hogwarts this year, and I refuse to let her be molded into another proper pureblood princess. You'd abandon your family? Harry asked skeptically. I'd save us from our traditions, she corrected. My parents aren't Death Eaters, but they're traditionalists. They believe in maintaining blood purity, proper alliances, and women knowing their place. Astoria and I are already promised suitable matches once we finish school. And in exchange for refuge, you're offering information, obviously. Regular intelligence from pure blood circles that your group can't access. Plus my knowledge of ancient magical practices preserved only in certain families. The Greengrass grimoires contain magic the Ministry has suppressed for centuries. Harry studied her carefully. Her proposal was logical, her demeanor composed, but something felt rehearsed about the exchange. Why me specifically? He challenged. You could seek sanctuary elsewhere, with fewer complications than aligning with the Ministry's most wanted underage wizard. Something flickered in her expression, surprise, perhaps, that he'd seen through to the unspoken question. Because you're building something new, she said finally. There are whispers among certain students, those dissatisfied with Hogwarts, those who see the limitations of traditional magical education. They say Harry Potter hasn't rejected magic, only its institutions. That you're creating an alternative. Rumors, Harry said noncommittally. Perhaps. Daphne's composure slipped slightly, revealing genuine emotion. But I've watched Hogwarts shape students into exactly what the Ministry wants, obedient practitioners of approved magic, never questioning why certain branches are forbidden, why magical creatures are marginalized, why we learn nothing of global magical traditions. Her voice hardened. I want more for my sister. For myself. Harry believed her then, not necessarily every detail, but the core frustration that drove her. He recognized the same hunger for knowledge without artificial constraints that had drawn Hermione to them. If we were creating something, he said carefully, it would be dangerous to associate with. The Ministry wouldn't approve. Neither would Voldemort. I'm not afraid of risks, she replied. Only of wasted potential. Harry nodded slowly. I need to confer with my associates. Wait here. He stepped back behind the stones where Sirius and Remus waited. Well? Sirius asked quietly. I believe her motivations, Harry said. But not necessarily her methods. She's holding something back. The question, Remus mused, is whether that something is dangerous to us. Only one way to find out, Harry decided. We take her to the secondary location, not our new primary base. Test her information, her loyalty, before bringing her fully into the fold. When he returned to Daphne, she stood exactly where he'd left her, patient and composed. We have conditions, Harry informed her. You'll be taken to a secure location, where your information will be verified. You'll undergo questioning under magical means to confirm your intentions. Veritaserum, she asked without evident concern. Among other methods, Harry confirmed. If you prove trustworthy, we'll discuss your sister's situation. Until then, you'll have limited access and information. Daphne considered this briefly before nodding. Acceptable. Though I should note I've been trained in occlumency since childhood. Any mental verification may be complicated. Harry wasn't surprised. Pure-blood families often taught mind shielding to protect family secrets. We'll work around that, he assured her. One more thing, I need your wand. I told you I came unarmed, she reminded him. And I'm verifying that claim. Without protest, she reached into a concealed pocket and withdrew a slender wand of dark wood. 12 inches, blackthorn with dragon heartstring, she said, offering it handle first. A gesture of trust, Potter. Harry accepted the wand, sensing the cool, reserved magic within it, not unlike its owner. My friends call me Harry, he said, making his own small gesture. I'm not your friend yet, she pointed out pragmatically. No, he agreed. But you might be. The weeks that followed brought rapid changes to their growing group. Daphne Greengrass, after passing their security measures, proved a valuable addition. Her knowledge of pure-blood politics and ancient magical practices complemented Hermione's academic brilliance and Harry's intuitive power. Their temporary base, a magically expanded cave system on Scotland's northern coast, soon became a hub of intense magical experimentation and learning. Harry found himself naturally taking the role of coordinator, balancing his mentor's specialized knowledge with his peers' diverse talents. The problem with standard shield charms, Harry explained during one session, is their rigidity. They're designed to block specific types of magic at specific power levels. He demonstrated by casting a conventional protego, visualizing the magic as a solid barrier. But if we approach shielding as energy redirection instead of blockage. He shifted his magical intent, creating a different type of shield that seemed to shimmer like heat waves. When Hermione sent a stinging hex toward it, the shield absorbed and dispersed the energy rather than blocking it. That's combining Eastern and Western magical theory, Daphne observed. The redirection principle comes from Chinese magical traditions. Exactly, Harry nodded. Why limit ourselves to one approach when we can synthesize the best elements of each? This philosophy became their core principle, magical integration without artificial boundaries. Hermione documented their experiments meticulously, creating what she called their alternative curriculum. Daphne contributed forgotten spells from her family's private collection, many predating the ministry's standardization of magical education. Word spread, somehow, despite their secrecy. 2 weeks after Daphne joined them, a nervous Hufflepuff named Justin Finch-Fletchley sought them out, guided by cryptic instructions passed through a network of dissatisfied students. The professors couldn't explain why magic works differently around Muggle technology, he explained, describing his frustration with Hogwarts' dismissal of his questions. They just say, that's how it is and move on. But that's not education, that's indoctrination. Others followed, not many, but enough to confirm that Harry's rejection of traditional magical education had sparked something larger. Luna Lovegood, a peculiar but insightful girl who'd been homeschooled by her father, brought unique perspectives on magical creatures and energies that even Alara found fascinating. Blaise Zabini, a Slytherin whose neutrality matched the Greengrasses, offered international connections through his mother's extensive network. By late August, their group had grown to 8 students and 4 adult mentors, including a recently arrived Andromeda Tonks, Sirius's cousin who brought medical expertise. They relocated again, this time to a more substantial property, an abandoned monastery in northern England that Sirius had secretly purchased through Gringotts using the Black family fortune. "It's time to formalize what we're doing," Harry announced one evening as they gathered in the monastery's restored Great Hall. "We started as refugees from a broken system, but we've become something more." "A school," Hermione suggested, eyes bright with excitement. "A real alternative to Hogwarts." "More than that," Daphne countered. "A movement to redefine magical education entirely." Harry nodded. "Both, I think. We need structure, proper classes, consistent methodology, but without the limitations that held all of us back before." They spent hours discussing curriculum, teaching approaches, and practical concerns. The adults provided guidance but allowed the students to shape the vision. This, Harry realized, was perhaps the most radical aspect of their approach, treating young witches and wizards as capable of directing their own magical journey. "We need a name," Luna observed dreamily. "Names have power." Suggestions flew around the room, some serious, others light-hearted. The Marauders Academy, Sirius's persistent favorite, the Free Magical Institute, the Synthesis School. "What about Merlin's Haven?" Harry suggested finally. Merlin learned and taught magic outside institutional control, bringing together different traditions. "And a haven is both a safe place and a harbor for new journeys." The name resonated immediately. Even Elara, typically reserved with praise, nodded approvingly. "Merlin's Haven it is," Sirius declared. "Now we just need to keep the ministry from shutting us down before we properly begin." That concern proved prescient. 3 days later, as they prepared the monastery for its first official term, alarm wards triggered throughout the property. Ministry detection teams had located their magical signature. 5 apparition points breached, Remus reported tensely, monitoring their security map. "At least a dozen magical signatures approaching." "Hit squad patterns," Sirius confirmed grimly. "They're not here to talk." Harry moved quickly, activating the emergency protocols they'd established. "Hermione, Daphne, get the younger students to the escape point. Luna, Justin, secure the research materials." "I can fight," Daphne protested. "We all can," Harry acknowledged, "but that's not the plan. We split their forces, extract everyone safely, regroup at the contingency location." Elara appeared beside him, her usual composure unruffled despite the crisis. "They've brought Dumbledore," she noted, observing the magical signatures. "His power is distinctive." Harry felt a momentary chill. Despite 2 years of preparation, the prospect of facing the legendary wizard still intimidated him. "Stick to the plan," he decided. "I'll lead Team 1 as the primary distraction. Sirius, take Team 2 through the eastern exit. Elara, secure our most sensitive materials." "And if Dumbledore pursues you specifically?" Elara asked. Harry gripped his wand, a custom creation they'd commissioned anonymously from a wand maker in Japan. "Then I finally meet the man who left me with the Dursleys." The first Ministry enforcers breached the main entrance as Harry's group moved to their positions. Spells flashed through the ancient stone corridors, stunners and binding hexes rather than lethal force, confirming this was a capture mission, not an assassination. Harry led his team, Remus and Andromeda, through a series of defensive positions, creating magical barriers that slowed the pursuers without directly engaging them. Their goal wasn't to win but to distract and delay. "East wing clear," came Sirius's voice through their communication charm. "Team 2 away. 1 objective achieved." Harry signaled his team to fall back to their secondary position. They'd nearly reached it when the corridor ahead filled with silvery light, and a tall figure with a flowing white beard stepped into view. Albus Dumbledore looked exactly as his chocolate frog card depicted, ancient but powerful, with half-moon spectacles and piercing blue eyes that seemed to look through rather than at you. He wore deep purple robes embroidered with silver stars, and his wand rested casually in his hand. "Harry," he said softly, his voice carrying easily despite the distance. "At last." Harry motioned for Remus and Andromeda to continue the planned retreat. To his relief, they complied, though reluctantly. Professor Dumbledore, Harry acknowledged, maintaining his position. Here to drag me back to my abusive relatives? Sadness crossed the old wizard's face. I never intended you to suffer there, my boy. Had I known the extent, you didn't check, Harry interrupted flatly. Not once in 10 years. A grievous error, Dumbledore admitted. One of many I've made where you're concerned. I hope you'll allow me to explain, to make amends. Right now, I'd prefer you explain why you've brought Ministry forces to attack children. Attack? Dumbledore looked genuinely startled. No, Harry. This is a rescue operation. When we detected the magical signatures of missing students here, students who chose to leave, Harry clarified. Who sought us out because Hogwarts failed them. Dumbledore sighed deeply. I see we have much to discuss. Perhaps we could. A tremendous crash from above interrupted him as part of the ceiling collapsed, not from damage but by design, part of their prepared escape routes. Harry used the distraction to activate the port key concealed in his bracelet. As the transportation magic took hold, the last thing Harry saw was Dumbledore raising his wand, not to attack, but in a gesture of warding that actually seemed protective rather than restrictive. Interesting, Harry thought as the world twisted around him. Not what I expected. The contingency location, a sprawling country estate in Ireland under Fidelius' charm with Alara as secret keeper, quickly filled with their evacuated group. Despite the close call, everyone had escaped safely, along with their essential materials and research. That was too close, Sirius declared as they regrouped in the estate's grand library. They're getting better at tracking us. Or we're getting too numerous to remain completely hidden, Alara countered pragmatically. 8 students and 4 adults generate significant magical signatures, especially with our experimental work. Harry paced restlessly, processing the brief encounter with Dumbledore. He didn't seem what I expected, he admitted reluctantly. Albus has always excelled at appearing reasonable, Remus noted. It doesn't change the fact that he left you with the Dursleys and never checked on you. And he's leading the effort to capture you now, Hermione added firmly. Harry nodded, but something still bothered him about the encounter. Dumbledore had seemed genuinely surprised by Harry's accusation of attack. Was it possible the headmaster didn't fully understand what his ministry allies were doing? Before he could pursue that thought, Daphne entered with her sister Astoria, a slender, dark-haired girl who had joined them just days earlier after Daphne smuggled her away from their family's preparations for her first year at Hogwarts. Everyone settled in the East Wing, Daphne reported. But we have a new problem. Father has officially reported Astoria missing. The Prophet's Tomorrow headline will link our disappearances to Potter's dark influence. They're escalating the narrative, Hermione observed. First Harry was kidnapped by dark forces, then I was either kidnapped or seduced away by him. Now you and Astoria are his latest victims. The public's easier to control if they believe I'm either a victim or a villain, Harry said grimly. Not someone making a legitimate choice to reject their system. So what do we do? Justin asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Keep running. How do we build a school if we're constantly relocating? The room fell silent as they confronted the fundamental challenge of their endeavor. Creating an alternative to Hogwarts meant nothing if they couldn't maintain a stable environment for learning. We need to go public, Harry decided suddenly. Not hiding, not running, declaring ourselves openly as a legitimate educational alternative. The ministry would shut us down immediately, Andromeda warned. Educational institutions require licensing. Only if we operate as a traditional school, Sirius countered, catching Harry's drift. But what about a private research collective that happens to include educational mentorship? Or a family cooperative, Remus suggested. Multiple families choosing to educate their children together, which is perfectly legal. We'd still need a secure, permanent location, Alara pointed out. Somewhere defendable against both ministry intervention and darker threats. Sirius's expression shifted suddenly. I know just the place, he said, a slow grin spreading across his face. It's been in my family for generations, has protections that predate the ministry itself, and legally, they can't touch it without direct Black family permission. Grimmauld Place? Remus asked skeptically. It's hardly large enough, not Grimmauld, Sirius shook his head. The ancestral Black estate in northern Wales. Black Haven. It's been sealed since my grandfather's time, but as head of the family, I can reopen it. Black Haven, Harry repeated, testing the name. Could be easily adapted to Merlin's Haven. The property includes a manor house, extensive grounds, and natural magical convergence points, Sirius continued, growing more animated. It's unplottable, protected by blood wards, and, most importantly, sits on private magical land granted by royal charter in 1542, outside normal ministry jurisdiction. A legal gray area, Andromeda nodded thoughtfully. They'd need special dispensation from the Wisengamot to intrude, which takes time and creates political complications. Exactly, Sirius grinned. We establish ourselves there openly but legally, using the ancient right of magical families to educate their children as they see fit. We're not a school competing with Hogwarts, we're a collective of like-minded magical practitioners sharing knowledge. The discussion continued late into the night, refining their strategy. By morning, they had a concrete plan. Sirius would officially claim the Black Haven estate and begin restoration, while the others prepared their educational framework and security measures. They would operate in the open, but with careful legal protections established through Andromeda's connections in magical law. As the others dispersed to begin preparations, Harry found himself alone with Alara in the library. His teacher, mentor, guardian, friend, observed him with her usual perceptive gaze. You're creating something significant, Harry, she said quietly. Beyond what I imagined when I found you at Privet Drive. We're creating it together, he corrected. She smiled slightly. No. This vision is yours. The rest of us are simply helping you realize it. She selected a book from a nearby shelf, an ancient text on magical pedagogy. When I took you from your relatives, I thought I was saving a powerful young wizard from abuse and neglect. I didn't realize I was helping catalyze a reformation of magical education itself. Is that what we're doing? Harry asked, half joking. Sounds a bit grandiose. Revolutions often begin with simple acts of refusal, Alara replied seriously. You refused your Hogwarts letter. Now others are refusing to accept the limitations placed on their magical learning. She handed him the book. History suggests such movements either fade quickly or transform society fundamentally. I suspect Merlin's Haven will achieve the latter. Harry accepted the book, feeling the weight of both the physical object and Alara's words. We still have to survive long enough to make that happen. Indeed, she agreed. Which means your next lesson may be the most important yet. What's that? Her expression turned resolute. How to stand your ground when the world demands you retreat. In the fading summer light, Harry smiled. That was one lesson he'd been practicing his entire life. Chapter 3, Merlin's Haven. Harry stood atop the west tower of Black Haven, watching the sunset paint the Welsh Valley in gold and crimson. The ancient estate sprawled below him, transformed over the past year from a neglected ruin into a thriving magical community. Students and teachers moved across the grounds, preparing for tomorrow's demonstration, their first public presentation of Merlin's Haven's educational approach. Nervous? Hermione asked, joining him at the parapet. The evening breeze tugged at her hair, now less bushy and pulled back in a practical braid. Excited, Harry corrected, though tension rippled beneath the word. 1 year ago, this was just an idea. Now. He gestured toward the grounds where 37 students from ages 8 to 17 practiced everything from wandless magic to integrated magical muggle science experiments. Now we've got the ministry sending official observers, the educational board demanding credentials, and half the pure-blood families in Britain clutching their pearls about our dangerous progressive teachings, Hermione finished with a grin. I'd say that's success. Harry laughed. At 14, he'd grown taller and more confident, his green eyes bright behind new glasses that actually fit his face. You're right. If they're scared, we're doing something right. The transformation of Black Haven into Merlin's Haven had been challenging but deeply rewarding. The ancestral Black estate possessed natural advantages, extensive grounds, ancient protective wards, and legal autonomy granted by royal charter centuries before the ministry existed. Sirius, embracing his role as head of House Black, had leveraged family magic and considerable wealth to restore and expand the facilities. What had begun as an act of rebellion, Harry's refusal of his Hogwarts letter, had evolved into a genuine alternative to traditional magical education. Their curriculum blended magical disciplines with Muggle subjects, ancient traditions with innovative techniques, practical skills with theoretical understanding. There's Daphne signaling, Hermione pointed toward the courtyard. The Ministry advance team must have arrived. Earlier than expected, Harry frowned. Let's go welcome our guests. They descended the tower staircase, passing walls lined with moving portraits, not of stern ancestors like at Hogwarts, but of their own students demonstrating magical breakthroughs, an ever-changing gallery of achievement that Harry had created to celebrate progress over lineage. In the main courtyard, Daphne Greengrass stood with perfect pure-blood composure before three official-looking wizards in ministry robes. At 14, she'd grown into her confidence, her blonde hair now cut in a practical bob that scandalized traditional magical fashion. Facilities inspection prior to tomorrow's public demonstration, one wizard was saying as Harry and Hermione approached. Standard procedure for any educational, we're not an educational institution as defined by ministry statutes, Daphne corrected smoothly. Merlin's Haven operates as a private research collective with educational components, legally established under the Magical Heritage Preservation Act of 1756 and the Family Educational Autonomy Provision of 1832. The lead inspector's face tightened with frustration. Miss Greengrass, these semantic games, aren't games at all, but legal distinctions that have been upheld by the Wisengamot 3 times in the past century, Harry interrupted, stepping forward with an easy smile. Welcome to Merlin's Haven, gentlemen. I'm Harry Potter. The inspector's eyes performed the familiar flick to his forehead, seeking the legendary scar partially visible beneath his unruly hair. Mr. Potter, the lead inspector recovered quickly. Broderick Chambers, Department of Magical Education. These are my colleagues from Magical Law Enforcement. Harry's smile didn't waver, but he noted the telling detail, they'd sent enforcement officers with their inspector. You're here earlier than we expected. Our formal demonstration is tomorrow. Minister Fudge thought a preliminary inspection would be prudent, Chambers explained with forced politeness. Given the unconventional nature of your collective. Of course, Harry gestured welcomingly. We've nothing to hide. Daphne can begin your tour of the grounds, and I'll notify our faculty of your arrival. As Daphne led the inspectors toward the main building, Harry touched his wand to a silver pin on his collar, a communications device Alara had developed based on Muggle radio technology enhanced with protean charms. Ministry inspection team with enforcement backup, he murmured. Standard security protocol. Within minutes, students throughout the grounds smoothly transitioned to pre-arranged activities, nothing illegal, but certain experimental magic moved discreetly out of sight. Sirius, in his role as official sponsor of the Haven, appeared to formally greet the officials. Perfect timing, Hermione whispered as they watched the inspectors disappear inside. Luna's class was just about to attempt consciousness expansion with the Thestrals. And Alara's senior group is deconstructing that cursed artifact from Bristol, Harry added. I'd rather not explain why 14-year-olds are handling dark objects. Even if they're handling them better than most ministry cursebreakers, Hermione noted with pride. Harry had learned over the past year that managing Merlin's Haven required constant balancing, between innovation and safety, openness and security, challenging students and protecting them. Unlike Hogwarts with its rigid house system and prescribed curriculum, the Haven organized students by interest and ability rather than age or arbitrary sorting. The student population had grown steadily through word of mouth and carefully cultivated connections. Most came from families dissatisfied with traditional magical education, Muggleborns facing prejudice, half-bloods torn between worlds, even purebloods seeking broader knowledge than Hogwarts offered. Some, like Daphne's sister Astoria, had left conventional schools for the Haven. Others, like young Colin Creevey, had chosen the Haven instead of accepting their Hogwarts letters. "We should check on the exhibition preparations," Harry suggested, steering Hermione toward the eastern courtyard where tomorrow's demonstrations would take place. They found Justin Finch-Fletchley directing a team of students arranging display tables and practice areas. The former Hufflepuff had discovered a talent for organization that made him invaluable for events. "Harry." "Perfect timing," Justin called. "We've got the integrated magic technology station ready, but I'm not sure about the wandless magic demonstration. It still looks too much like accidental magic to the untrained eye." "Let's switch the order," Harry decided. "Start with traditional spellwork, then wandless applications, then integration. Give the observers a bridge from what they know to what we're doing differently." "Smart," Justin nodded, making notes. "Oh, and Blaise wants to know if we're still including the International Magical Traditions segment, given the Ministry presence." Harry didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. If they're uncomfortable seeing magic beyond British traditions, that's exactly why we need to show it." As they continued preparations, Harry reflected on how naturally he'd fallen into leadership of this growing community. He'd never sought to be in charge, he'd simply wanted to learn magic without the constraints and politics of Hogwarts. But his vision for what magical education could be resonated with others, drawing them to the Haven and to him. "Harry," Remus's voice came through his communication pin. "We need you in the North Library. Chambers is asking pointed questions about our defensive magic curriculum." "On my way," Harry replied, excusing himself from the exhibition planning. He found Remus maintaining polite composure while Chambers examined their course materials with obvious disapproval. "Combat spells typically reserved for aura training," the inspector was saying. "Surely you don't consider these appropriate for underage wizards?" "We consider practical defense essential for all magical practitioners," Remus replied evenly. "Especially given recent increases in magical creature attacks and the unexplained disappearances in Devon last month. Those matters are being handled by qualified ministry personnel," Chambers said dismissively. "The same qualified personnel who took 3 weeks to respond to the werewolf attacks near Exeter?" Harry asked as he entered. "Where 2 Muggle families were killed before action was taken." Chambers bristled. "Those incidents are not relevant to educational standards, Mr. Potter." "They're precisely relevant," Harry countered. "Our students learn defense because the world isn't always safe, and help isn't always coming. We don't just teach them to pass examinations, we teach them to survive." "A convenient philosophy when you're operating outside proper oversight," Chambers sniffed. Harry kept his expression neutral despite his rising irritation. "Our educational outcomes speak for themselves, Mr. Chambers. Last month, 5 of our students took the standard OWL examinations as external candidates. All achieved outstanding in every subject. This was a point of particular pride. They deliberately entered students for official testing to prove their methods worked. The results had proven embarrassingly successful for the traditional system." "Test results aren't everything," Chambers muttered, though it clearly undermined his position. "No," Harry agreed. "They're just the beginning. Perhaps you'd like to observe an actual class." Before Chambers could respond, Harry's communication pin vibrated with an urgent pattern. He touched it discreetly. "Incoming," came Sirius's tense voice. "Official ministry delegation just arrived at the gates. Lucius Malfoy's leading them, with Fudge himself." Harry's pulse quickened. The Minister of Magic himself, accompanied by one of their most dedicated opponents. This wasn't a routine inspection. Mr. Chambers, Harry said smoothly, it appears your colleagues have arrived. Shall we greet them together? The inspector looked genuinely surprised. The minister wasn't scheduled to, that is, I wasn't informed. Harry exchanged glances with Remus, confirming his suspicion. Chambers had been sent ahead to occupy them while the real inspection force assembled. A classic distraction tactic. Let's not keep the minister waiting, Harry suggested, gesturing toward the door. By the time they reached the main gates, a significant delegation had assembled, Minister Fudge in his pinstriped cloak, Lucius Malfoy looking imperious beside him, and at least a dozen officials including, Harry noted with interest, a pink-clad woman with a toad-like face who surveyed the grounds with poorly concealed disdain. Minister Fudge, Harry called, approaching with confident strides. This is an unexpected honor. Welcome to Merlin's Haven. Fudge looked momentarily disconcerted by Harry's composure. Perhaps he'd expected to find a sullen teenager rather than a self-assured young man. Yes, well, Potter, he blustered, adjusting his lime-green bowler hat. Given tomorrow's public demonstration, I thought it prudent to conduct a personal inspection to ensure everything is up to standards. We appreciate your attention to our work, Harry replied diplomatically. Mr. Black will be delighted to speak with you about our legal standing and educational framework. On cue, Sirius appeared, impeccably dressed in formal robes that emphasized his status as Lord Black rather than his history as an escaped prisoner, a status reversed through legal maneuvering last year, though many still regarded him with suspicion. Minister, Sirius nodded courteously. Quite a delegation for a simple educational visit. Nothing simple about this establishment, Black, Lucius Malfoy interjected smoothly. Operating outside established channels, teaching unregulated magic, harboring students who should be at properly accredited institutions. All perfectly legal, Sirius countered, as our solicitors have repeatedly demonstrated. Perhaps you'd like to review the documentation again? While Sirius engaged the officials, Harry scanned the delegation, noting faces and positions. Beside the minister and Malfoy stood Dolores Umbridge, senior undersecretary, whose anti-creature legislation Remus had taught them to despise. Behind them, several Wizengamot members including, surprisingly, Augusta Longbottom, a traditionalist but known for her independent thinking. Most concerning was the presence of 3 Aurors trying to look inconspicuous at the back of the group. Harry touched his communication pin surreptitiously. Elara, full security protocol. Aurors present. The response came instantly, understood. Defense teams activated. Harry's attention returned to Fudge, who was now addressing him directly. Simply ensuring proper standards are maintained, Potter. Surely you understand our concern when underage wizards and witches practice experimental magic without ministry supervision. I understand completely, Minister, Harry replied evenly. Just as I understand that magical education hasn't substantively changed in Britain for over 200 years, while the world around us transforms daily. We're not opposing tradition, we're preventing stagnation. Pretty words, Umbridge simpered in a girlish voice that set Harry's teeth on edge. But the law requires certain standards, certain controls, to protect vulnerable young minds. We exceed every educational standard the ministry has established, Harry countered. As our OWL results demonstrated last month. Why don't you see for yourselves? We'd be happy to provide a comprehensive tour. The delegation followed as Harry led them into the main courtyard, where, as if by coincidence rather than the well-rehearsed security protocol, students demonstrated various magical disciplines in carefully controlled settings. Justin's organizational skills shone as each area they passed happened to showcase particularly impressive but uncontroversial magic. Here we combine charms and transfiguration rather than treating them as separate disciplines, Harry explained as they passed a group transforming objects while simultaneously altering their magical properties. We found the integrated approach leads to deeper understanding of magical principles. Unconventional, Augusta Longbottom commented, watching a young witch transform a teacup into a bird while simultaneously enchanting it to sing in harmony with another student's transfigured animals. But undeniably effective. And here's our youngest group, Harry continued, leading them to where Andromeda Tonk supervised children aged 8 to 10 performing basic wandless magic, levitating feathers, creating small lights, and changing the colors of simple objects. Pre-Hogwarts age children performing deliberate magic. Fudge looked scandalized. That's completely legal, Sirius interjected smoothly. The trace only activates at 11, and the prohibition against underage magic specifically exempts educational settings, which we are recognized as under the Family Educational Collective designation. Umbridge's eyes narrowed. These aren't all children from a single family, Black. The law recognizes magical guardianship collectives, Andromeda spoke up, joining the conversation. Established in the 1700s to protect orphaned magical children. We've simply utilized existing legal frameworks in innovative ways. The tour continued, with Harry carefully navigating between showcasing their achievements and avoiding their most controversial innovations. He noted Malfoy's calculating gaze taking in every detail, particularly the students from traditionally pureblood families like the Greengrasses and Zabinus. I must say, Mr. Potter, Augusta Longbottom remarked as they watched an integrated potions and herbology demonstration, your approach has merit. My grandson might have benefited from your methods. Traditional education hasn't served him well. Neville would be welcome here, Madam Longbottom, Harry replied sincerely. Many students thrive with our more personalized approach. Recruiting, Potter? Lucius asked silkily. Perhaps next you'll suggest we close Hogwarts altogether and redirect students to your experiment. Not at all, Harry kept his tone respectful despite his dislike for the man. Hogwarts serves its purpose admirably. We simply offer an alternative for those who need different methods. The inspection continued for hours, with ministry officials questioning teachers, examining facilities, and scrutinizing teaching materials. Through it all, Harry maintained calm confidence, knowing they'd prepared meticulously for this day. As the delegation gathered in the main hall for concluding remarks, Harry sensed the mixed impressions they'd made, some officials clearly impressed, others suspicious, most simply confused by an educational model so different from what they knew. Minister Fudge, Harry addressed the group, I hope today has demonstrated our commitment to magical excellence and student development. We don't oppose the ministry or magical tradition, we simply believe education must evolve to prepare students for a changing world. Fudge harumphed, looking uncomfortable. Yes, well, quite comprehensive, facilities appear adequate, unusual methods but apparently, effective. Minister, Malfoy interrupted smoothly, while the physical facilities may be acceptable, there remain serious concerns about curriculum oversight and regulatory compliance. The Wisengamot Educational Committee has specific recommendations that must be addressed before tomorrow's public demonstration can proceed. Harry tensed. This was the trap they'd anticipated, using regulatory requirements to force changes or delay their public debut. What specific concerns, Mr. Malfoy? Elara spoke for the first time, stepping forward from where she'd been quietly observing. As curriculum director, I'd be interested in hearing them. Malfoy unrolled a parchment with theatrical precision. Mandatory ministry-approved history curriculum, restriction of certain branches of magic to appropriate age groups according to standard progressions, regular ministry inspections, and, most importantly, certification of all instructional staff through approved channels. None of which apply to family educational collectives, Sirius countered immediately. Unless they exceed certain enrollment numbers, Umbridge smiled sweetly. Which you have, by our count. 37 students from 19 different families places you under the Educational Institutions Act of 1923. Harry recognized the legal trap, they'd found a technicality to reclassify the Haven and impose institutional requirements. They'd anticipated this eventually, but not before tomorrow's crucial demonstration. These are complex legal questions, Harry responded carefully. Surely they don't need to disrupt tomorrow's educational presentation. Many families are traveling considerable distances to observe our methods. The law is clear, Mr. Potter, Umbridge's smile widened unpleasantly. Uncertified educational activities must cease pending regulatory review. The tension in the hall thickened as both sides recognized the standoff. Harry weighed their options: comply and lose momentum, defy and risk enforcement action, or find a third path. A disruption saved him from immediate response. The main doors opened to admit a tall figure with a long silver beard, resplendent in midnight blue robes embroidered with silver stars. Minister Albus Dumbledore greeted pleasantly, as if his arrival at this pivotal moment were pure coincidence. What a fortuitous encounter. I was just coming to preview tomorrow's demonstration, having received a most intriguing invitation. The room's dynamics shifted instantly. Fudge looked discomfited, Malfoy irritated, and Harry felt unexpectedly relieved. Whatever Dumbledore's intentions, his arrival disrupted the Ministry's momentum. Dumbledore, Fudge acknowledged stiffly. This is a Ministry inspection. Your presence isn't required. Oh, I wouldn't dream of interfering with official business. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled behind his half-moon spectacles. I merely thought to observe as an interested educator. After all, innovation in magical instruction benefits us all, does it not? His gaze met Harry's briefly, communicating something beyond his pleasant words. Not hostility, Harry realized with surprise, but a kind of professional curiosity, one educator to another. Actually, Harry seized the opportunity. Professor Dumbledore's presence is quite fortuitous. Perhaps he could offer an independent assessment of our educational methods. As Chief Warlock and Hogwarts headmaster, his opinion on these regulatory questions would surely carry significant weight. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. Clearly, he hadn't expected Harry to welcome his involvement. I would be delighted to offer my perspective, if it would be helpful. Fudge sputtered, caught in an awkward position. Opposing Dumbledore's involvement would appear partisan, allowing it might undermine their regulatory attack. This is highly irregular, Umbridge protested, but Madame Longbottom cut her off. It seems eminently sensible, the formidable witch declared. Albus has more educational experience than everyone in this room combined. His assessment could resolve these questions efficiently. After further negotiation, a compromise emerged. The public demonstration would proceed as planned, with Dumbledore joining the official observers. Afterward, a formal review would address the regulatory questions Malfoy had raised. As the delegation departed, Harry found himself face to face with Dumbledore for the first time since their brief encounter during the Ministry raid on their previous location. An impressive achievement, Harry, Dumbledore said softly, gesturing to the haven around them. Not at all what I expected when you declined your Hogwarts letter 3 years ago. I didn't plan this, Harry admitted. I just wanted to learn magic without complications. And instead, you've created new complications entirely your own. Dumbledore smiled slightly. The hallmark of true innovation, I find. Harry studied the old wizard, searching for signs of the manipulation and control Sirius and Alara had warned him about. He saw wisdom certainly, calculation possibly, but also genuine interest. Why did you help us just now? Harry asked directly. You could have let the Ministry shut us down. Dumbledore considered the question carefully. Perhaps because, despite our differences, I believe in educational choice. Perhaps because 37 young witches and wizards shouldn't suffer for adult disagreements. His blue eyes twinkled. Or perhaps simply because Lucius Malfoy so clearly wanted the opposite outcome. Before Harry could respond, Sirius approached, his posture protective. Albus, he acknowledged warily. Quite the timely arrival. Sirius, Dumbledore nodded pleasantly. You've done remarkable work here. Though I confess, when you escaped Azkaban, establishing an educational institution wasn't among the outcomes I anticipated. Life's full of surprises, Sirius replied dryly. Speaking of which, I'm surprised you're not trying harder to bring Harry back under your influence. Rather than taking offense, Dumbledore sighed. My influence has proven considerably less beneficial than I intended in Harry's case. Sometimes wisdom lies in recognizing when different paths are needed. Their conversation was interrupted by Alara, who approached with calm purpose. Security teams report all ministry personnel have departed, though monitoring wards detect observation charms left behind. Standard procedure, Dumbledore noted. Though perhaps more numerous than strictly necessary. We'll handle it, Harry assured Alara. Could you check that all students are at dinner? After today's disruption, routine is important. As Alara departed, Dumbledore watched her with thoughtful eyes. MS. Nightshade has proven an unexpected but evidently capable guardian. Her reputation in certain magical research circles is formidable. She taught me what the system wouldn't, Harry said simply. Indeed. Dumbledore stroked his beard. I would be interested to discuss educational philosophy with you both, if time permits. Your integrated approach to magical disciplines has particular merit. The conversation continued in the headmaster's office as they showed him their curriculum materials and teaching methods. Despite himself, Harry found Dumbledore's insights valuable. The man had centuries of educational experience, after all. Your method of teaching wandless magic to young children is especially noteworthy, Dumbledore observed, examining their training materials. Beginning before they develop wand dependency, quite revolutionary. It was Harry's idea, Sirius noted proudly. He realized his own accidental magic had patterns that could be systematically developed. Wandless magic is considered advanced at Hogwarts, Harry explained, but only because students spend years learning to channel magic exclusively through wands first. Start the other way around, and the natural connection remains stronger. Dumbledore nodded thoughtfully. A compelling hypothesis, supported by your results. I wonder if certain elements might be adaptable for Hogwarts, with proper study. The implied professional respect, one educator to another rather than adult to child, wasn't lost on Harry. Whatever their past conflicts, Dumbledore was engaging with Merlin's Haven as a legitimate educational enterprise. As evening approached, Harry guided Dumbledore toward the guest quarters prepared for the official observers. I sense tomorrow will be significant for your institution, Dumbledore remarked as they walked. But I must ask, Harry, have you considered the broader implications of your work here? You mean politically? Harry asked. That, certainly. The ministry feels threatened by educational autonomy, particularly when championed by someone of your symbolic importance. Dumbledore's expression grew serious. But I meant something deeper. You're not just teaching alternative magic, you're challenging fundamental assumptions about how magic should be controlled and who should control it. Harry hadn't articulated it quite that way before, but the assessment rang true. I just wanted students to have choices. To learn without artificial limitations. Noble intentions, Dumbledore acknowledged. But revolutionary ones, nonetheless. Revolutions attract opposition, sometimes dangerous opposition. The implied warning hung in the air between them. Before Harry could respond, Hermione appeared around a corner, slightly breathless. Harry, there you are. The demonstration team needs, she stopped abruptly, noticing Dumbledore. Professor. I didn't realize. Miss Granger, Dumbledore greeted her warmly. Your academic achievements continue to impress, even outside Hogwarts walls. Hermione straightened, meeting his gaze directly. Thank you, sir. I found Merlin's Haven allows me to pursue magical knowledge without arbitrary restrictions. So I observe, Dumbledore replied mildly. Though I confess, Hogwarts has missed your inquisitive mind and exceptional abilities. Hogwarts missed a lot of things, Hermione responded with uncharacteristic sharpness. Including the systematic prejudice that told me my parents weren't worth saving because they're muggles. Dumbledore's expression sobered. The incident with your parents' cursed injury. Professor McGonagall informed me of your frustration with the limitations of standard magical healthcare for muggles. A legitimate concern that deserves addressing. Which we did address, Hermione stated firmly. Here. While the traditional system shrugged and offered sympathy without solutions. Harry touched Hermione's arm gently, sensing her rising emotion. To Dumbledore, he said, "This is why Merlin's Haven exists, Professor. Not just to teach differently, but to solve problems differently. To find answers when the established system says, that's impossible or, that's just how things are." Dumbledore studied them both for a long moment. "I see," he said finally, with what appeared to be genuine understanding. "Then tomorrow's demonstration becomes even more significant than I realized. Good evening to you both." As Dumbledore continued to his quarters, Hermione turned to Harry. "Do you trust him?" "Not entirely," Harry admitted. "But I think he's genuinely interested in what we're doing, professionally if nothing else. And having him here disrupts the Ministry's plans to shut us down before tomorrow." "Speaking of tomorrow," Hermione refocused, "the demonstration team needs your input on the final sequence. We're debating whether to show the fusion magic or the protective enchantments as the finale." Fusion magic, Harry decided immediately. It's more visually impressive and showcases our core philosophy better. The protective work is important but lacks the immediate impact we need. They hurried to join the preparations, the conversation with Dumbledore temporarily set aside amid the practical demands of the Haven's most important public moment yet. Dawn broke clear and bright over Merlin's Haven, illuminating grounds transformed for the day's demonstration. Floating platforms provided elevated viewing areas, magical barriers ensured safety while allowing clear observation, information stations explained their educational philosophy and methods. Harry surveyed it all from his tower vantage point, pride mingling with apprehension. Everything they'd built over the past year would be judged today by magical families, ministry officials, educational experts, and the press. The future of their alternative educational model hung in the balance. "Impressive," came Alara's voice as she joined him. "From a desperate boy fleeing an exploding house to the founder of a magical educational movement in 3 years. Your parents would be proud." Harry smiled at his mentor. "I had help." "Yes," she agreed simply. "But the vision was yours." Below, visitors had begun arriving, dozens of magical families passing through the welcome area where Remus and Andromeda greeted them. Harry spotted several familiar faces, parents of current students, representatives from international magical communities, even a few Hogwarts professors who'd come independently of Dumbledore. "Time to take your position," Alara reminded him. "Remember, today isn't about proving we're better than traditional education. It's about proving we're a viable alternative worth protecting." Harry nodded, adjusting his formal robes, deep blue with the Merlin's Haven emblem, a stylized tree with roots and branches forming a continuous circle. The symbol represented their core philosophy, knowledge flowing without artificial divisions, connecting rather than separating magical traditions. "Harry!" Daphne called, approaching rapidly. "You need to see this." She handed him a special edition of the Daily Prophet, delivered just minutes earlier. The headline blared, "Potter's Rogue School, Innovation or Threat?" Minister questions safety as controversial demonstration begins. Beneath were 2 articles, one detailing ministry concerns about unregulated magical experimentation, the other featuring interviews with students' parents praising the Haven's results. The contrasting narratives couldn't be clearer, the ministry painting them as dangerous radicals, supporters presenting them as educational innovators. "They're setting the stage to justify intervention if anything goes wrong today," Harry observed, scanning the text. "Look, they've even quoted anonymous sources claiming we practice restricted magic." "Lucius Malfoy's work," Daphne said darkly. "Father says he's been lobbying the Wisengamot Educational Committee for weeks." "We stick to the plan," Harry decided, handing back the paper. "Our demonstration speaks for itself." The main event began at precisely 10 o'clock, with Harry welcoming the assembled visitors. Over 200 magical folk gathered in the main courtyard, with ministry officials, including Fudge and Umbridge, seated prominently in the front row. Dumbledore sat slightly apart, watching with polite interest. "Welcome to Merlin's Haven," Harry began, his voice magically amplified. 3 years ago, I made a choice that many found shocking. I declined my Hogwarts letter. Not because I rejected magic, but because I sought a different relationship with it. That personal choice has evolved into what you see around you today, a community dedicated to exploring magical education without arbitrary limitations. He gestured to the students assembled behind him, ranging from 8-year-olds to near adults, deliberately mixed rather than segregated by age. Today, we'll demonstrate not just what we teach, but how and why we teach it. You'll see magic that bridges traditions, combines disciplines, and honors both ancient wisdom and modern innovation. We ask only that you observe with open minds and judge by results rather than preconceptions. The demonstration unfolded in carefully planned segments, each highlighting different aspects of their educational approach. Young students demonstrated wandless fundamentals, showing control that impressed even skeptical observers. Older groups presented integrated magical disciplines, charms flowing into transfiguration, potions enhanced by arithmetic calculations, defensive magic incorporating elements from global traditions. Throughout, Harry and the other instructors explained their methods, emphasizing the philosophical underpinnings, that magic was not discrete subjects but interconnected energy, that artificial divisions between light and dark often obscured deeper understanding of magical principles, that incorporating Muggle science and technology enhanced rather than diminished magical practice. Notice how the students work collaboratively across traditional age boundaries, Harry pointed out during one sequence. Younger students bringing fresh perspectives, older students providing experience and precision. Learning flows in all directions, not just from teacher to student. He observed the audience reactions, some clearly impressed, others skeptical, many simply fascinated by approaches they'd never considered. Even Fudge appeared grudgingly interested in a demonstration of magical efficiency where students produce stronger effects with less magical expenditure than traditional methods required. The penultimate demonstration featured their most academically impressive achievement, NEWT-level students, including Hermione, performing magic that combined multiple disciplines simultaneously. The crowd gasped as they transfigured objects while simultaneously enchanting them with complex charms, all wandlessly and with verbal precision that explained the magical theory as they worked. Magical education traditionally separates theory from practice, Hermione explained to the audience. You learn why, then separately learn how. At Merlin's Haven, we integrate them, understanding deepens ability, and practical application reinforces theoretical knowledge. As the finale approached, Harry felt growing optimism. The demonstrations had proceeded flawlessly, clearly impressing neutral observers. Even some ministry officials were nodding appreciatively at particularly elegant magical applications. For our final presentation, Harry announced, we'll demonstrate fusion magic, the harmonic combination of multiple magical traditions to create effects impossible through single approaches. The demonstration team took their positions, 12 students including Harry, Hermione and Daphne, forming a circle in the center of the courtyard. At Harry's signal, they began channeling magic in distinct traditional styles, British wand-based spellwork, Eastern energy manipulation, Nordic runic sequences, African rhythmic invocations, and Native American elemental harmonics. The separate magical streams became visible to the audience, different colored energies flowing from each practitioner, initially distinct but gradually interweaving as the demonstration progressed. The crowd watched in fascinated silence as these diverse magical approaches, typically considered incompatible, began harmonizing under the students' careful guidance. At the center of their circle, the combined magic took form, a shimmering tree growing from nothing, its roots and branches formed of pure magical energy displaying all the combined magical signatures. The tree expanded upward and outward, its branches extending over the audience, showering harmless magical sparks that transformed into butterflies, birds, and flowing symbols representing knowledge and unity. The spectacle drew gasps and spontaneous applause. Even ministry officials looked impressed despite themselves. Harry felt a surge of pride, they'd achieved exactly the impact they'd hoped for, demonstrating magic that was both beautiful and revolutionary in its implications. Then everything went wrong. A sharp crack like thunder split the air. The protective barriers around the demonstration shuddered under sudden pressure. Harry felt the intrusion immediately, external magic forcing its way into their carefully balanced working. Disruption, he shouted to his team. Stabilize the flow. The students responded instantly, adjusting their magic to counter the interference. For a moment, it seemed to work, their fusion magic held steady despite the intrusion. Then came a second, stronger surge. Dark energy pulsed through their working, corrupting the harmonious flow. The magical tree twisted, its branches turning sharp and threatening. The harmless magical creatures transformed into winged serpents that dove toward the audience. Chaos erupted. Visitors screamed, some attempting to flee while others drew wands defensively. Ministry officials jumped to their feet, aurors moving to protect Fudge. Containment protocol. Harry commanded through their communication system. The demonstration team immediately shifted focus, abandoning their creative working to instead contain the corrupted magic before it could harm anyone. Harry's mind raced, analyzing the attack pattern. This wasn't random interference, it was deliberate sabotage, expertly targeted at the precise magical frequencies they were using. Whoever had done this understood their techniques intimately. Through the confusion, Harry caught sight of Lucius Malfoy, not panicking like the others, but watching with calculated interest. Beside him stood a nondescript wizard Harry didn't recognize, one hand partially extended, fingers moving in subtle patterns. There. Harry pointed, directing Sirius's attention to the suspicious figure. The saboteur. Sirius moved immediately, transforming into his dog form to navigate the panicking crowd more effectively. But before he could reach the target, more dark energy pulsed into their working. The magical tree shattered, sending shards of corrupted magic flying in all directions. Harry abandoned the containment effort, recognizing it was failing. Instead, he reached deep into his magical core, drawing on techniques Alara had taught him for emergencies only. With a powerful thrust of both hands, he created an absorption field, a dangerous technique that drew the corrupted magic toward himself rather than allowing it to strike the crowd. "Harry, don't!" Hermione screamed, recognizing what he was doing. The backlash will, but Harry had already committed. The corrupted magic flowed toward him like water down a drain, dark tendrils wrapping around his body, sinking into his skin. The pain was immediate and intense, like being burned from the inside out. Through the haze of agony, Harry maintained focus on a single goal, converting the hostile magic rather than merely containing it. This was the most advanced technique Alara had taught him, a last resort approach that used one's own magical core as a purification vessel. The crowd watched in horror and fascination as Harry stood illuminated by dark energy, his body seeming to absorb the chaotic magic that had threatened them. His eyes glowed with unnatural light, his hair lifting as if in a magical wind. "What is the boy doing?" Fudge demanded of no one in particular. "Stop him before he—" "Be silent," Dumbledore commanded with such authority that even the minister obeyed. The old wizard watched Harry with intense concentration, making no move to interfere but clearly ready to act if necessary. Within his magical core, Harry fought a desperate battle, not just containing the corrupted magic but transforming it, redirecting its purpose while preserving its power. The technique required perfect magical control, absolute focus, and willingness to endure tremendous pain. For 30 seconds that felt like hours, Harry stood locked in this internal struggle. Then, with a final surge of effort, he completed the conversion. The dark energy that had entered his body emerged transformed, pure white light that flowed outward in gentle waves, repairing the damage caused by the attack and creating a sense of peace that calmed the panicked crowd. As the last of the converted magic dissipated, Harry swayed on his feet. Hermione and Daphne caught him before he could fall, supporting him between them. "Reckless," Alara said sharply as she reached them, though concern shadowed her eyes. "That technique isn't meant for corrupted fusion magic." "Didn't have much choice," Harry managed, his voice raspy with pain. "Too many people in danger." The courtyard had settled into stunned silence. The attack had been frightening, but Harry's response, absorbing hostile magic and transforming it into healing energy, had left an even stronger impression. Dumbledore approached, his expression grave but his eyes showing something like respect. "Remarkable control, Harry. Few fully qualified wizards could have managed that conversion." Before Harry could respond, Sirius returned, his expression dark. The saboteur disapparated. Lucius claims no knowledge of him, of course. Of course, Harry echoed bitterly. Minister Fudge bustled over, flanked by Aurors and a furious-looking Umbridge. This is precisely why unregulated magical experimentation cannot be permitted. Fudge declared loudly. The danger to public safety was caused by deliberate sabotage, Minister, Dumbledore interrupted calmly. And then contained through extraordinary skill by Mr. Potter and his students. I believe that demonstrates not the danger of their methods, but their exceptional preparation and control. Fudge sputtered. That's hardly, you can't possibly, actually, I can, Dumbledore countered pleasantly. As an expert witness officially invited to assess today's demonstration, I am prepared to submit a formal finding that Merlin's Haven demonstrates educational excellence and appropriate safety protocols, including exceptional emergency response capabilities. The minister's face purpled. This is outrageous. Dolores, explain to Dumbledore why, perhaps, came a new voice, we should consider the evidence objectively. Augusta Longbottom stepped forward, her formidable presence silencing Fudge mid-protest. I came today as a skeptic, Minister. Traditional magical education has served my family for generations. But what I've witnessed, both the planned demonstrations and the response to this attack, suggests genuine innovation with substantial benefits. Other influential observers began voicing similar opinions. The sabotage had backfired spectacularly. Instead of discrediting Merlin's Haven, it had given Harry and his students the opportunity to demonstrate their most impressive capabilities under pressure. The Educational Committee will want a full investigation, Lucius Malfoy inserted smoothly, attempting to regain control of the narrative. Indeed they will, Augusta agreed. Including identifying who was responsible for introducing corrupted magic into a controlled demonstration. The magical signature was quite distinctive. Her pointed look at Malfoy made it clear she suspected his involvement. Others murmured agreement, including several Wisengamot members present as observers. Recognizing the shifting dynamics, Fudge attempted to salvage the situation. Yes, well, an investigation is certainly appropriate. In the meantime, perhaps a temporary arrangement, the law is quite clear, Minister, Sirius interjected. Educational collectives may continue operation during regulatory review unless immediate danger is demonstrated. As today's events proved, the only danger came from external interference, which Merlin's Haven contained effectively. The legal and political debate continued, but Harry, still supported by Hermione and Daphne, had reached his physical limit. Get me inside, he muttered to them. I need to lie down before I collapse and undermine our whole, perfect control, narrative. As they helped him toward the main building, observers parted respectfully. Many reached out to touch his arm or shoulder in gestures of support. Parents of current students formed a protective corridor, their faces showing pride and renewed confidence in their educational choice. You've won them over, Hermione whispered. Not just impressed them, actually won them. Let's hope it's enough, Harry replied weakly. Because that attack wasn't random. Someone specifically targeted our fusion magic with corruption that could have killed people. Malfoy, Daphne stated with certainty. Working through proxies, but definitely Malfoy. Maybe, Harry agreed. But the magical signature felt familiar somehow. Not like anything I've encountered directly, but reminiscent of something. We'll analyze it later, Hermione assured him. For now, you need healing and rest. As they reached the entrance, Harry glanced back at the courtyard where ministry officials, Haven staff, and influential observers continued their intense discussion. Dumbledore caught his eye briefly and offered an almost imperceptible nod, acknowledgement, respect, perhaps even alliance. 3 days after the demonstration, Harry sat in the Haven's council room with his core team, reviewing the aftermath. The initial crisis had passed, leaving them in a stronger position than anyone had expected. The Educational Review Committee has granted us provisional recognition, Sirius reported, displaying the official document. We're classified as an experimental magical research and educational collective, a newly created category that acknowledges our unique status. With conditions, of course, Remus added. Quarterly safety inspections, registration of advanced magical research, and age-appropriate restrictions for certain techniques. Reasonable compromises, Elara assessed. And strategically beneficial, official recognition provides legal protection we previously lacked. Harry nodded thoughtfully. The attack had paradoxically strengthened their position by demonstrating both the quality of their magical training and the political motivations of their opponents. What about the investigation into the sabotage? He asked. Ongoing, officially, Sirius replied with a cynical smile. Permanently inconclusive, realistically. Lucius has too much influence for direct accusations to stick. But his public standing has suffered, Andromeda noted. Several families who previously aligned with the Malfoys' political positions have quietly distanced themselves. The attempt to discredit Merlin's haven through violence rather than legitimate criticism has backfired. And our enrollment? Harry asked. 17 new applications since the demonstration, Hermione reported proudly. Including, interestingly, Neville Longbottom. Augusta was apparently quite impressed with our approach to magical confidence building. Harry smiled at this particular victory. Neville, from what he'd heard, had struggled at Hogwarts despite considerable magical potential, exactly the kind of student who could thrive in their environment. We'll need to expand facilities, he mused, considering the implications of their growth. And probably adjust our organizational structure. With over 50 students, we need more formal systems while maintaining our flexible approach. The meeting continued, addressing practical matters from expanded accommodations to enhanced security measures. Throughout, Harry felt a quiet pride in what they'd created, not just a school, but a community united by shared values rather than arbitrary sorting or bloodlines. As the meeting concluded, Daphne handed him a sealed letter. This came for you personally. Secure delivery, unregistered owl. Harry examined the unmarked envelope cautiously before opening it. Inside was a single sheet of parchment containing just 3 lines. The demonstration was most illuminating. Your approach to magical integration has significant potential. We will meet again when the time is right. No signature, but Harry didn't need one. The magical residue on the parchment carried the same distinctive signature as the corruption that had attacked their demonstration, diluted but recognizable. Voldemort, he said quietly, showing the note to Elara. She examined it carefully, her expression grave. Yes. The magical pattern matches what you absorbed during the attack. He wasn't trying to destroy us, Harry realized. He was testing us. Testing me. Your ability to convert corrupted magic would interest him greatly, Elara agreed. Few wizards could have accomplished what you did. Harry considered the implications. So we've gained ministry recognition but attracted Voldemort's attention. I'm not sure that's a net positive. It means we're significant enough to matter to both sides, Elara said simply. A position of danger, but also of potential influence. Later that evening, Harry stood alone on the West Tower, watching the sunset as he had so many times before. Below, students moved across the grounds, some practicing magic in small groups, others simply enjoying the summer evening. Their numbers had grown, their community strengthened despite, or perhaps because of, the challenges they'd faced. Footsteps on the stone stairs announced a visitor. Harry turned to find Hermione approaching, carrying 2 steaming mugs. Thought you might want this, she said, offering him hot chocolate. It's been a day. Thanks. He accepted the mug gratefully. I was just thinking about how far we've come. 3 years ago I was sleeping in a cupboard under the stairs, and now. Now you're running a revolutionary magical school that's forced the ministry to create new educational categories just to classify it, Hermione finished with a grin. Not bad for a Hogwarts refusnik. Harry laughed, the sound carrying across the peaceful grounds. Not just me. All of us together. They stood in companionable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. Stars began appearing, bright against the darkening blue. Dumbledore sent a letter, Hermione mentioned casually. He's proposed an educational exchange, selected Haven students visiting Hogwarts for specialized seminars, and vice versa. A mutually beneficial sharing of methodologies, he called it. Harry raised an eyebrow. Extending an olive branch? Or keeping his enemies closer? Both, probably, she acknowledged. But it's a start. Recognition that we're not just a temporary rebellion but a legitimate alternative approach. Harry nodded thoughtfully. We'll consider it. On our terms. As night settled fully over Merlin's haven, Harry reflected on the journey that had begun with a single defiant choice, refusing his Hogwarts letter. That small act of independence had cascaded into something far greater than he could have imagined, creating not just an alternative path for himself but for dozens of others. Whatever challenges lay ahead, ministry politics, Voldemort's interest, growing pains, Harry felt prepared to face them. Not alone, as the boy in the cupboard had been, but surrounded by a community that valued knowledge, courage, and the freedom to define one's own magical journey. Merlin's Haven was more than a school now. It was a home. A beginning. A revolution. And Harry Potter, the boy who refused to follow the path others had chosen for him, stood at its heart, not as the boy who lived, but as himself. On his own terms, at last. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.